everyone. Hopefully this is all working. Please let me have no issues this time round. It would make a change, certainly compared to others. I even got my guest here to put on some earphones because I thought I'm not having the echo problem again. But by all means, let us know in the chat if you do get any audio issues, because then I can at least sort them out. So yes, thanks for tuning in today. I think it's late afternoon for me. It's what, like first thing in the morning for you lot over there?
Absolutely. About 10 a.m.
This is like, either you lot have got to come to Britain or I've got to move to America, or one way or the other, because this would make it a lot easier to deal with time zones. But but then all the Europeans would have a problem. So there's all problems there. But this one is a bit of a unique list, actually, and half suggested by me, but half suggested by, well, actually, when we get onto that in a minute, as I've got Mackenzie Franklin with me, then some people are probably like, okay, you know, who have you got on this week? And it's from Sidegame LLC. LLC is, what is it, your equivalent of our limited company or something, isn't it?
Absolutely.
States?
Yeah.
So that's fine there. But share my screen. That might help get that done in there. Application, StreamYard. It's always a problem when you try to get these done. Wow, that's a... I know, having problems with that, but hope everybody's good. How have you been today? I mean, I know you've only just got up in the morning, I suspect.
Today's been pretty great. So right now we're watching little French bulldog puppies, so that's been wonderful. And also been coming down. I got my last vaccine shot on Friday, so been a little sick with those side effects, but doing okay now. Things are great.
So, okay, yeah, it's going to be a while before I get mine, I must admit. Because that's the thing. I need to. Well, I want to get my vaccine, so it will make things a lot easier. But I'm in the well, despite getting older, the pinnacle of health. But I'm still only 36, which does mean that I'm kind of last in the running for getting stuff done. So I'm kind of like, you know, maybe it will be a while before I am at a position where I can go, oh, okay, you know what, this will work, but.
My wife and I are both educators, so we were pretty early on the list here. So we were very lucky to both get our shots pretty soon.
That makes sense, actually. Yeah, because if you are on in what they call the front line.
Daily. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, we had that. Right. There we go. Add the site problem. It's because I had everything in one Chrome tab, which means that I couldn't share one Chrome tab on its own. But yes, Sidegame LLC, as you can see, has their own YouTube channel. Criminally less than 100 subscribers. I say that only been operating for what, like 2-3 months now?
About 3 months, yeah. We started in very early December, so we're coming we're starting our 4th month here.
Yep, and so, one thing I can certainly say is that if you want to check out a lot of top 10 lists, I say like check out my channel because I love doing top 10s, but blimey, you've got a lot in 3 months.
So right now I've really been focusing on the channel, in particular top 10 lists, because it's just something fun to talk about, and these organizing videos. So I feel like it's not something that's really shown on channels. Is a lot of people show unboxings, but in this case, we're looking at how to organize things. So how to pack things appropriately, what organizers to use, and how to get games started quick, because I think that's pretty dang important when it comes to gaming.
That would be good, and for some of these like Kingdom Death Monster, Maracaibo, Arkham Horror, Living Card Game, and that, there's quite a few that could use those sort of videos. So that's pretty good. I'm quite impressed you've got enough games in your collection to have a top 100, so at least I'm not the only one who's doing that. Various cull games. But the other reason that I brought you on is because of this. Do you want to just explain what this personal game night host is?
Absolutely. So Sidegame LLC is a personal game night host company, first and foremost. We've got a giant library of games that we will cater to your event. So you basically drop us a line and say, hey, we have this many people we're hosting. We want a game like this. And we come and we cover everything. We cover the music. We cover the setup. We cover the rules. We will make sure to not only teach, but also facilitate the games to make sure it's a perfect experience that you really don't have to put any effort into. So you're like, man, I want to do this. We'll make sure it happens as smooth as possible. So there's a lot of different options. You can just have that kind of basic package, or you can even keep the games if you want them. We can provide all sorts of different services on top of it. So it's really up to whatever the people that are hosting the game nights want.
So what's like the audience for this? Are we talking like mostly families or people new to gamers? Because I can't imagine someone like me, for example, unless maybe you've got some heavy Euros in the library that I've always wanted to try. Maybe that's an option, but
So we have a huge range, things from basic family games to heavier Euros, like some Lacerda games, some of the newer hits from last year. So we have like Maracaibo, things like that. We have a huge range of games to really hit everybody. So our business started at the end of 2019. So we were starting to volunteer at conventions and really trying to get our name out that way. And a lot of people had a lot of hits with a mix of small and large games. Gave out a lot of cards, but once 2020 came around, we got hit really hard by the coronavirus, not able to go to these large conventions anymore or advertise, had to restrict the amount of people that we were able to gather. So right now our main target is families, yes.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, your thing would have crashed and burned in the UK if it happened. But you like weren't allowed to go indoors if you were lucky, let alone have multiple people around for a game night host. So I tried it as much as I could when lockdowns weren't on. But yeah, I mean, you would have struggled to get anything past the regulations down here. But no, I like this idea. I don't know anyone in the UK who has done this, and this is the first I've heard of such a thing. But yeah, I can see this working. If you're a heavy gamer, I want to try this Euro game out. Bring you guys round, you're teaching it, you've got the game. Perfect. You don't have to rely on someone else to get the game for you. Families is obvious why this would work. You know, if you're new to games, you just want to try them out. Well, great. It's a bit like wine tasting. I've done stuff like that where I've had a guy come over and show us a bunch of wine. It's in my lounge. I provide the food and they provide the drinks or something. They've been pretty good. So I don't see stuff like that was fun for tastings. I can't see why it wouldn't work for board games. But nah. Cool. So, and where are you based at? Colorado, is it?
So we're in Colorado Springs, Colorado, but as part of our package, you can go to different parts of Colorado if that works.
I don't know how big Colorado is, so I know it's cold. That's about it. It's cold in the south part. That's about it. That's about my knowledge of Colorado. But no, it seems like a pretty cool idea. All right, well, let's say, hope that goes well. But by all means, everybody, hashtag support small creators. Get on his YouTube channel, subscribe, and check out some of those lists, because there's a lot of them. I might even have to do a reaction video to one maybe at some point. That'd be quite cool, because that took off quite nicely, the one I did for Board Gaming Ramblings. And reacting to people's top 10 lists is always quite something I sort of find quite interesting, in the sense like I can just go, right, I've not seen these top 10 before. I want to see what they go, and then I agree or disagree as I go on. It's something new that I'm trying to do at the moment. It's worked for one video. I need to do a few more. But cool. Anyway, what on earth are we doing this list for? So top 10 campaigns. Now, originally, you suggested it was going to be like top 10 scenarios in games. I thought that might get a little bit too detailed down, like, especially with some of the games that I know are going to be on our lists, where we're talking about a very specific scenario. And we can mention them if we want, but it just seemed like maybe for people who aren't familiar with the game, it just might be a little bit too niche. Even
that
though
makes sense.
I get some of that. So I tweaked it slightly so that we were doing top 10 campaigns specifically. And we're not just talking about the game in question. Yes, we will mention what game it is, and some games only have one campaign in it. But there are some games that have multiple campaigns, whether by expansion or just based in the box. And so we're saying, right, okay, yes, we're putting this game on, but we are specifically putting this game on because of X campaign. So you won't see the game repeated on a list. Like, I'm not going to have my 1 through 6 is not the same game, but 6 different cycles. You know, I've had to actually go, right, I'm putting this game on at this number, but saying it's this one that's making the reason. Now, in terms of my reasoning, it's kind of a mixture, really. I mean, mostly it's theme and story, but it's also mechanical changes as well, if any. Like, maybe it brought in some new mechanics that were quite fun. If it's just one campaign and the whole game is that campaign, and maybe the game itself, like in general, is just good enough, like it was a good experience. It could be legacy based as well. That's, you know, that's on the cards. But a lot of it would probably be more weighted towards theme and story. What about you?
My biggest thing was the evolution of mechanics. So how you start the game versus how you finished, in addition to the uniqueness and the carryover from piece to piece. So I thought those were huge things to look at and to see basically what's going to get you to come back, really.
Fair enough. Well, let's get on with it then. Trying to keep... Well, I ain't promising anything about this being less than 2 hours, guys. I've kind of given up on that front. I talk too much, and I don't tell my guests to like be quiet or anything. I just let the stream go on as long as it's going to. So, all right, let's start with 10s. All right, guests go first while I type in your details and bits.
Sounds good. So the first game that I have is probably the smallest game on this list, I want to say. And it's one I don't think a lot of people have played. This is going to be The Grizzled Armistice Editions campaign. So in the campaign version of The Grizzled, have you played The Grizzled?
I had played the Grizzled. I forgot it had a campaign. I haven't played it with the expansion, which is probably why.
A lot of people do. A lot of people don't know this actually exists, but in the Armistice Edition, it introduces a campaign where you're actually going to be going through different battles of World War One. And the Grizzled is all about dealing with the issues that the individual soldiers will face during the war and the trauma and the struggle that they face as a whole. So in Armistice Edition, you have the normal deck of cards that you're going to be drawing, but as you play, you're going to be adding more hard knocks and more of these cards with different symbols as you play. So it's got a nice evolution of mechanics. In addition to the cards that you'll be adding to the deck, you also have these good luck cards, I think they're called, something like that. But you'll add them to the side, and they're like one-time bonuses that you can use if you're in a pinch. And
does it come with these miniatures?
It does come with the miniatures. They're really nice, actually.
That's really cool.
It's like great. And it comes in a great little package. You can fit everything in the box, and it's wonderful. I was quite surprised. And it does my favorite thing that really gets you coming back to Legacy games is easy to set up, and it's short. It's surprisingly short. I played this with a group that I had played other Legacy games with. We played Rise of Queensdale, and we just gave up on that one because it took forever. Like over 20 games, something like that.
I've not actually played that yet. No,
I wouldn't recommend it. But this one you can get into so quickly. It's wonderful.
So all these different chapters you go. I mean, I enjoyed the Grizzle fine. Not enough to keep it, but I thought, this is a neat little game. And I thought this was the expansion Actual Orders, which I have not played. So I had no idea this even existed. This looks more like it's a special edition. Although, does it actually have the base game in it, or is it just this campaign?
It comes with everything you need for the base game, and essentially it includes the At Your Orders expansion in it. It takes a lot of the ideas from that expansion with the kind of like you're going on missions every day, but it ties them into a campaign experience. It really takes the whole Grizzled package and weaves it into a complete game, in my opinion.
I'd be tempted to grab this actually, because I heard the At Your Orders fixed a few bits in the base game and certainly made it more enjoyable. Yes. So I was already tempted by that, but knowing that this Armistice Edition exists, I'd be tempted to grab that for a short, quick Legacy campaign, although I'll bet it's nigh on impossible to get hold of, because, I mean, I didn't even know its existence, let alone whether it's in stock anywhere.
If you've got a group of 3 or 4, I strongly recommend this one. Wonderful.
I have to look this one up. Okay, fair play. That's a good start. All right.
I was wondering if you had heard about this one, so that's cool. It's cool. It's not something even new.
Only the game, but that seems pretty cool. All right, fair enough. So, awesome. With that, so my 10 is mostly a mechanical side of things, because in terms of its story, I wouldn't say that this one was like the best story in the world. It kind of like, okay, this story's there, not too fussed, even though it does throw in a few cool, like, wow, but this one was one of those campaigns where it was a mod. You could cannibalize the game and just use the modules in your main game. It was an expansion, but rather than simply play the whole campaign, if you wanted, you could just cannibalize and say, right, I'm just going to use these modules. But the campaign teaches you these modules as you go through by throwing in a half decent backstory, but mostly just throwing in surprises like, okay, right, get this module out, and it turns out to be, whoa, one's really good, and that's the Rise of Fenris for Scythe. So, as I say, this one is definitely more of a mechanical reasoning for it, but, I mean, the story's not bad. It's just like, okay, cool, there's a fair bit of backstory, and I do like this world setting, the kind of alternate history, mechs and Agricola, as some people like compared it to. But I loved how it taught you all these extra bits as it went on, and I would like more campaign games to do this, particularly if they are expansions to games. Don't just give us a campaign with all this new stuff all at once, and say, right, only the campaign uses this stuff. I like the idea of like, no, I can use this in a normal game of Scythe, and occasionally I do, but it's recommended not for new players. But I don't want to spoil too much, because it is kind of one of those deals, so I might just like hover on that one picture and leave it there, actually. But as I say, the new modules that you get in this, really cool. They change up the game for the better in some. They kind of add a bit more variety in various types of aspects. Again, not trying to spoil at all, and like I say, this whole top 10 I'll try not to spoil, but I was keen with this one. As I say, it's my number 10 mainly just because this is more mechanical and format rather than I'm going to read this story and come back to it. Like, I mean, I could be convinced to play through this campaign again if someone asked, even though I know what's happening, and I know there is the potential that will happen in the future, but otherwise I might just say, look, oh, you got it? Are you fussed about the campaign? No? Right, well, let's get all the pieces, because the pieces that made up the campaign were still good fun.
So I really like the way this introduces those aspects. It reminds me a lot of Space Base's expansion, where the Shy Pluto, it introduces those little bits and pieces. But I left this one off my list because I think the campaign's just pretty bad in general. I love the expansions and the modules, but God, man, this campaign has some huge runaway leader problems. That's what I experienced, at least. Played this with a group of 4, and as soon as you started winning, you started unlocking these things that clearly give you extra bonuses, and those are just going to carry you the whole way. There was a point where I think it was maybe our 6th or 7th game, you unlock something major, and everyone at the table was silent because they just watched as their people were getting decimated over and over again. And it was. Go ahead.
I didn't notice as much the whole runaway leader thing. I mean, I certainly won the campaign and I won the majority of the games, but then not getting too big-headed, I classified myself as better than the other players at Scythe, just from experience. So I figured, well, I'm winning a lot, so that's probably because I know how to play Scythe more than these lot do. So it's like, fair enough. So I couldn't really tell if it was a runaway thing. It'd be interesting to sort of play this again with people who are like Scythe veterans. But yeah, I didn't mind that too much. The story bit also, as I say, this is why it's kind of squeaked in on the 10. You know, there was an honourable mention for the. Well, I'll get onto that at the end of the list, but it was kind of like I was tossing between this and another one that I played recently, and I'm kind of like, and I could switch either way, but they would be on there for totally different reasons.
Okay, but I'm curious to hear what you have to say.
We'll get onto that later. All right, let's move on to 9s.
All right, I'm starting again.
Oh, yeah, always guess first.
All right, sounds good. So this one is a new one that I've started recently, and I finished the first campaign, and I was okay on it. But the second campaign is incredible. Oh my gosh, it like fixed a lot of the problems I had with the original campaign and made it so that it's more focused on the exploration as a whole rather than this artificial timer. And that is going to be The Last Night for Tainted Grail. So The Last Night is the second campaign for Tainted Grail. It's set hundreds of years in the future of the original campaign, but you wake up in this snowy landscape. Now, very similar to Scythe, I'm not going to get into the spoilers at all, but wow, the biggest thing that it does to make it an incredible experience is it actually takes out the menhirs. So the menhirs in the original game are timers. You have this little coin that will track how many turns you've been using, but for The Last Night, you actually don't have them on the board. You have to kind of just deal with this wilderness and all of the issues that are surrounding you. And Tainted Grail does it really well. It has you focusing on surviving. There's this aspect of surviving the cold because you're covered in snow, as well as just, pushing on from area to area. So I think they did a great job with this. The new characters they introduced are great. And I love all of the new backstories and the more thematic use of the characters they added this new expansion with the second wave of stuff that gives backstories to all the characters and like tiny micro missions you can complete that give you snippets of your personal history. And I think it just does wonders to the game. So right now, go ahead.
I was kind of guessing that, actually, the way you were describing it, because I do have to agree that it certainly did. When you were saying it fixed problems with the base one, I'm kind of like hard pressed as to which one I prefer story-wise, this one or the best one. But yeah, mechanically, this one did fix some issues with the base. I have not yet tried the Age of Legends one or whatever it is, the second one yet, but I have tried The Last Night. You say it gets rid of the menhirs. It does sort of.
Kind of, yeah.
I mean, it doesn't fully get rid of them, but it does mitigate it a lot more than the first one did. I mean, the first one, you have to house rule how those menhirs work in order to enjoy the game, because otherwise it's just a pain. But the second one does a better job at mitigating it for a bit, but you still have to house rule a few things in it, like the frostbite. I mean, did you keep that rule as it was?
So I haven't had a big issue with the frostbite. That might be because of the character I'm playing. I'm playing the Butcher, so he can pretty easily get rid of it. His ability is you can eat a food and heal 2 frostbite, something like that.
Did he have that? I don't remember the Butcher
something
character.
Like
that. Was that one of the characters or one of the abilities?
That's one of the character's abilities. I think his name is Dagon or Dragon, something like that. Really close to Dagon. So
I forgot he had the frostbite rule. No, who was I playing? I was playing. I almost played the Wolf Girl, but no, I played the Bard, the
nice.
storyteller.
Yeah.
And she actually came in handy because that movement ability of hers was just godlike. It's like, wait a minute,
I was tied between her and the butcher.
I mean, all you've got to do is basically not stay in the same place for too long. Okay, that's, for the most part of the game, pretty easy to achieve. But otherwise, she just came in handy. But that was a cool one. And Tainted Grail's a sweet little game as well. Okay, that's cool and interesting. I'll be interested to hear what you think of this next campaign, depending which one of us actually gets around to playing it first.
Absolutely. I'm kind of terrified about starting the Red Death. That one just seems like a nightmare mode. Holy cow.
Yeah, although I gotta admit, I have, I mean, that Red Death one, yeah, the idea that is like, this is for the veteran players. It's like, excuse me, it's not like the game was a cakewalk beforehand. And
Age of Legends, story mode now, calm down.
And Age of Legends has, what I can tell, is like controlling troops, in a sense. It sounds like you're going to be like having armies under your control. I don't know the full rules of it, but that's what it seems to be hinting at, because bear in mind, Age of Legends is set in the prequel stage.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping that's not going to be too ridiculously complicated. Not to mention like a nightmare to like do well in.
Oh well, man, if you have to feed all those troops every round or something like that.
No, I'm pretty sure Rosenberg hasn't gone anywhere near it, so it should be fine. But all right, my next one is, the game is the whole campaign. There is no other like special campaign thing. The whole game is just one big legacy campaign. Once you've played it, there's no physical way I think that you can reset it. Maybe you can, but I'm not sure I would want to. So I wouldn't want to spend all the time getting the cards in the right place and that. But it took me ages to get this one to the table. I had to wait for a group to be available, and even then I could only see them so often. Then COVID happened, and then that got delayed. So we were almost kind of cheering that we actually finished it, purely because it was dragging on a bit. But that's not a fault of the game. That was just COVID being a problem. But I had a good time with The King's Dilemma. This really sort of interesting, unique card game where the setting is dull as ditch water. It's your medieval setting, Game of Thrones type thing. But calling this Game of Thrones the negotiation game is actually not too far off what it is. Each of you takes control of a rival house, and the idea is that the king, you play over multiple years of is it kingships? I'm not sure, but like multiple reigns. So one game is a particular king's reign, and then that game is done, you go through the motions, and then the next game is kind of like your descendants and the next king on. So it's going through like the whole history, basically. But it's a negotiation game where every round, trying to find like half-decent pictures of it, which is proving somewhat difficult, but these story events come up, and like you can see like these branching path things. So you open one particular card, and it says you've heard about some rustlings over in the next village. They want armies to defend them. Do you go send armies, or do you say sort your own problems out? It basically gives you all these yes or no dilemmas. But then each of you as a group has to vote on whether you are going to say yay or nay to a particular scenario. And each one of these scenarios that you vote on has ramifications for the overall story, as well as your ability to score points on each game, depending on what your secret sort of faction objective is, because everybody's got their own kind of short game and long game plans. But you might decide, right, we're not going to go help that village, screw them. And then later on in the campaign, they rise up as rebels and militia and start like giving you hassle. There might be another one where this person is accused of being a witch, and so it's like, well, do we put her to death or do we let her live? And it's like, well, if you put her to death, morale goes down and that, but then if you keep her on and she turns out to be a bit of a witch, then it's like, oh, that causes problems later on. There's all these different branching stories that can develop from it, which was one of the main reasons I loved it. The other bit was just the fact that negotiation games are a good laugh for me. And like the pictures don't really do it justice because it's not showing a lot, but you effectively have the cards, and once you're done with them, you can stick them in like the bin pile once they're done with, but otherwise they stay on the board and act as, that's a little bit better. They stay on the board and act as story plot arcs down the side here. And this chart in the middle is telling you is like morale and economy and welfare and knowledge going up and down depending on whether you vote yay or nay on stuff.
Interesting. So it looks like they're communal resources. So how does that work? Does each player kind of work on different resources, or?
No, it's basically, this is like, that grid is like the city in general, like the city's welfare in a sense. And you might like, one of your long game ways of scoring some points might be that you don't want knowledge to get too high. So when a dilemma comes up,
Okay.
so when a dilemma comes up that says, we found some inscriptions in this cave here, which kind of disproves the whole mother religion thing, or at least throws some doubt on it. And it's like, well, do we publish these or do we commit them as heresy?
Oh,
And
you burn them. Absolutely.
well, I was playing a faction that, because there's lots of different ones you can pick. I picked one that was more kind of like the zealot, like fanaticism thing for the most part. So you role play this to your heart's content, but I was
absolutely.
role playing the idea that we were just like religious nutcases. So anytime somebody tried to dispute the mother or something like that, I was constantly like, nope. All my power on this vote, we're not having it. Burn heretics. It's like, it just went completely mad with it, and like to the frustration of the other players. But it doesn't always go your way, and I just like the way that the story shaped itself. But I can't see myself wanting to play it through a second time because I'd recognize too many of it. But then, to be honest, even if you did, you wouldn't see the same progression twice because yay or nay for a lot of dilemmas, and there's a lot of them, drastically changes things.
Wow. And does that like start from the original? I saw that they had that branching path. So if I say yes to the first thing, does that completely change my game if I said no to the first thing?
Well, one dilemma on its own wouldn't necessarily dramatically change it. It's more like the culmination, because you'd imagine that there's maybe like about 10 major storylines that are going on, but depending on whether you vote yay or nay on certain dilemmas, that story arc progresses and eventually completes.
Gotcha.
But, it will have some cool odd effects. But yeah, you role play this if you like a negotiation game. This one's a good, fun, like kind of legacy style game.
I'll be honest, this sounds amazing, but I don't think it's something that I'll ever get to play because it's that legacy, and you have to have a competitive group that's going to be that many, at least 3 or 4. It's got to be 4, right? 4 or 5, or how many people?
I think you can play this with a 3. I mean, you can't play it 2, and you certainly can't play it solo, as some people in the chat are like wondering, I'm a solo player, so this won't work. And it's like, well, of course it won't.
Of course not.
But you need a group that's going to role play it. You need a group that's going to get into negotiations and want to bribe people. Like, it's like, look, I'll give you $5 here. Vote yes. All right, vote yes. Why do you want me to vote yes? I don't care. Here's some money. Vote yes. Yeah, it's that kind of thing. But it's a good laugh, but not for everybody. All right, that's
Gotcha.
9s.
All right, number 8 is one that came out this past year, and it's an expansion that is the culmination of everything that this game has released so far. And that is going to be Hostage Negotiator, and this is specifically the career expansion. So Hostage Negotiator has you playing as, go figure, a hostage negotiator, and you're going to be trying to rescue as many people as you can. So with these people, they're going to be held by some bad guy, basically. And this can be as realistic as possible. It could be just a person that is burnt out of student loans. It could be a person that is needing to pay for their health care on their children. Or it could be a person that's just working for some militia for another country. And you need to go in and you need to do what you do best, rescue these people, and hopefully capture the people that are trying to capture, I guess, trying to kill everybody else. I don't know, what's a good name for this?
The bad guy. I mean,
how do you call a bad guy that's kidnapping somebody? The kidnapper?
Kidnapper. Yeah, kidnapper. Go that.
There you go.
The
Great.
Terrorist.
Terrorist. Yeah, there we go. So the kidnapper. But Career does this so well where it puts you through this large campaign where you're going to be going from case to case to case to case. But before every case, you're going to have some card that will affect you some way. And generally, it's going to be something that happens at your office. So this might be something that deals with your promotion status, the stress at work, the interactions with your coworkers, things like this. And every game you play will be drastically different. You're going to construct this deck of event cards. There's one for each year, as well as personal events that will happen after work every day. And based on how well you do at the negotiations, good or bad things may happen. And these personal things may affect your stress levels. They may affect the way you perform the next day. You can do crazy things. There's a bunch of these stressor cards that you may accrue, and these could include things like debt. It could include your spouse. Maybe you're having a spat with them. It could include your car or something small like that. But these really add up.
I would love to have that where it's like, I lost this campaign because my wife was giving me gyp this morning. It's like, how's that going to work?
You can get divorced. It's pretty serious. Like,
God.
It's pretty bad. And go ahead.
This sounds, I mean, is the story interesting more than like just the fact that it's like got branching paths? I mean, did you find the story good fun or?
So the way the story works is it doesn't, it's not on rails. So it's very much like your story is made up of these event cards. There is one event that always happens in the middle of the campaign. And then the end of the campaign has a big secret envelope that's going to be the end of your campaign. And I think that's the coolest part, because the giant envelope at the end has one really cool mission that kind of takes everything you've worked for and puts it into this one thing. And they're completely different. You might think that it just might be another hostage case, but it's not. It could be something. I don't want to spoil anything because they're so cool. When you open them up, it'll be completely different than anything you'll experience, and you really want to just keep going back in until you've seen them all, because they're all so good. They're all different levels, different experiences. I can't recommend this one if you enjoy solo games. This is a solo only game, so it's got to be something you're willing to sit down and play. But the best part of this is it's quick, very similar to the Grizzled Armistice Edition. These games take 20 minutes tops, and you could play 3 of them in a row really quickly. And the game actually recommends that you sit down and play multiple in a row, because it is fun. It's easy to jump into, and it's a blast, honestly.
Oh, well, this one makes me sad though, because I have Hostage Negotiator in the other room, and I do have Career because I did Kickstart it. I just haven't had time to play the thing. So I didn't have time to play it before this list. So that one is like, you want to call that my 11 maybe, but I'm looking forward to trying it, but I just did not get time to sit down and give it the beans. And now you've had it on your list, and now it makes me more like excited to like get it out to the table. So it's definitely going to happen, but at least you've mentioned it, so it hasn't been forgotten, and there won't be like comments later. I mean, this should please a lot of people, because we've got basically a bit of a bromance of solo players going on in the chat at the moment, where we seem to have got, not only we got my buddy the Hexy Beast who we've got on next week, but also several other solo players. So, which to be fair, for a campaign top 10 list, actually I think solo players are probably going to be more there. But apparently XEBase has not actually tried Hostage Negotiator, which is actually quite shocking, because you live and breathe solo games, so I cannot believe you have not tried it yet.
XEBase, you gotta try this one. It is wonderful. It benefits if you have all the expansions, because each expansion that you have will put an investigator in your potential pool of Hostage Negotiator cases. And so the more you have, the more variety you're going to have, but you don't need it all. So I would recommend some of the newer scenarios, because they are that cool. There's one recently that I did covered. There's a social media influencer that's holding hostages, and I think that's a super fascinating scenario.
Yeah, I mean, the later ones do throw in some weird rules that make life a little bit more fiddly, like complicated wise, but not too bad. But like I say, you can make do with the base game for a while, because there's plenty enough content in there. Crime Rave just basically doubles it. Yes. And I do have a bunch of those packs. So there are some cool ones in there. I mean, I like some of the symbol ones from the old lot, which is like the guy trying to get hospital bills paid for his daughter that's dying or something. I mean, this is definitely a game that will trigger people.
Oh, man, it is very serious.
Yeah, but I like that. And at the end of the day, it's a dice game, and the luck can hose you, but it's still pretty solid. Alrighty, number 8. So there's 2 campaigns in this one, and there's a legacy one and a normal one. I'm picking the normal one mainly because, the legacy one's decent as well, but I thought like just for simplicity's sake, the main one was still pretty good. This game from Portal has not had the best of starts, I must admit. It had a bit of a shaky upbringing, and I can see why. Its rulebook was somewhat diabolical, and the app integration was not perfect, but I got into it late when I found a better rulebook on BGG, not to mention the app stuff had been fixed, and so I still give First Martians credit. Wow. And I think the main campaign in First Martians was pretty decent, actually. You've already got these standalone scenarios in the box, but then you had a separate campaign with totally different missions. So it wasn't anything from the standalone scenarios. It's not like you just played 5 of them in a row, which I was afraid it was going to be. No, it has its own book with its own storyline from start to finish. You've landed on this planet, you're trying to set up, you start getting weird signals coming through that's messing all over your systems, and the app is taking you through this. Like, you'll be just setting up oxygen tanks and doing stuff with the rover, and then all of a sudden you're like radio silence. It's like, huh? Well, just cause this. And the plot is kind of you trying to obviously contact home and survive, because things are going to pot, and if you can't contact home, you'll never get home. But as you're finding out what's causing it, it's just, it very much is like a realistic film about being on Mars, because this is not, shall we say, what's the word? like blockbuster movie type thing. This is more like The Martian, the movie.
Mhm.
So Matt Damon surviving
Yeah,
with
yeah.
potatoes and that. So this is like semi-realistic what's going on, and I love the app integration in this, where it's got the ambient music and it's got different story elements that it gives you, like all the different, like written as if it was NASA talking to you with codes and that. But I thought this was a pretty decent storyline throughout. It kind of ends on a bit of a somber note in a sense, but I was entertained playing through this one, and it gave me a chance as a solo player to enjoy a bit of First Martians again.
Excellent. So I really steered away from this because I'm not the biggest fan of Robinson Crusoe. I think that the system is a little kind of wonky, with the luck being such a heavy factor in like really critical like results, which is hilarious.
You just put hostage negotiator on your list.
Hostage negotiator. I think it's because maybe hostage negotiator is so short. Because I think maybe like my luck to strategy ratio leans to shorter games, but I'm so happy that they were able to take the criticism and implement it. They used the app, I assume, to fix some of the problems, or how did they fix it? What do you think?
Well, I mean, I've got Robinson Crusoe on my shelf. I mean, I don't have a problem with that one, like luck side, because I mean, there's luck in a lot of these games.
Yeah.
For card draw or dice and that. So that never flummoxed me. With Robinson Crusoe, it was just a fact of, wow, I got to learn all these rules again, because there was quite a few of them. This one, yeah, you need to do a bit of research in terms of the rule book and that, because certainly the initial rule book for this was not great. And with Robinson Crusoe, it's more kind of semi-fantastical in the sense that you're doing exploring and things like that, whereas this one is more, somebody says, like work. Yeah, in a sense, but don't think work as in boring. This is, like I say, it's meant to be The Martian. This is to be taken more seriously compared to Robinson Crusoe, which has you like eating berries and then like a few days later suddenly you got stomach aches and comedic stuff like that. Now this one's a bit more serious, like you notice something's going wrong with the electrical plant. Do you fix it in advance? It's like, nah, I'll skip it for now, it's fine. And then later on it blows up. You get those semi-ramifications, but yeah, this one is definitely more on a serious level. But I mean, I love the app integration in it. It tells the story,
about to ask
handles
about
the
that.
bookkeeping, and I want more games to have app integration.
Interesting. Would you prefer this over Robinson Crusoe?
It's been very close in the past as to whether I prefer this to Robinson Crusoe, but I think overall I still prefer Robinson Crusoe.
Okay.
Because I think that slightly more comedic element is more to my liking. There are more scenarios in it now, and with the new Game Found campaign that's coming out soon with that book of adventures, it's just going to get ridiculous, the amount of variety in that game. So yeah, I mean, Robinson Crusoe is still my preferred one, but I mean, if Robinson Crusoe, when he said like, oh, we're doing a new edition of it, if he'd said, oh, we've got app integration for this now, I'd have jumped on board in seconds. I mean, I think that's the one thing Robinson Crusoe could do with an app. But if it can't do that, then I'll just take more cards and stuff. So like I say, I'm one of the few people that goes mad for Third Martians in a sense, or like gives it a lot of buzz, because I know it had a shaky start. Even Ignasty's like, yeah, okay, we made a mistake with First Martians, so it's not going to be for everyone, but for how cheap it is, you can get it on sale pretty much everywhere. I gave it a chance. I came into it late, which I think helped, but I gave it a chance. I think maybe my collection just needed a semi-serious campaign, and First Martians kind of did that, because I'm not mad on the whole Martian thing, because we've done it to death. It's like everything is now about Mars. But this one, I think, was just that one where I thought, yeah, you know what? As a co-op, rather than competitive thing, and taking it more seriously, because a lot of the other one, I mean, Terraforming Mars, it could be any planet, it could be anything. It doesn't really need to be Mars. It's just drafting cards at the end of the day. This one actually felt more like, no. I'm actually on Mars. I've got to deal with oxygen and, growing plants and staying alive. That just felt a bit more realistic.
It sounds really thematic, and I think that's probably the strength of the game, in my opinion. Robinson Crusoe was one that I bought twice, and I've sold twice, but this one seems really interesting. I like the idea of, hey, this is a space simulation. You are on the red planet. I think this could be a cool one, and the app integration, like you were saying, that sounds like a great step in the right direction for a game like this.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, another comment that kind of goes well with it is that, yeah, this has you working to prevent things from failing. That's kind of more its shtick, whereas Robinson Crusoe is more, you do this particular event and then it comes back to bite you. But yeah, I mean, if Robinson had an app, fantastic. Gotcha. This one has the app, and as I say, it's still one that I'm pretty fond of for now, but I pretty much reserve it solely for solo on the basis that I'm one of the fewer people that sort of jumps on board with it. But, well, different strokes. On to sevens.
All right, my number 7 is the only game I don't have with me, and that's because it's a one-and-done game. So you open this one up and you throw it away.
Well, I don't have King's Dilemma anymore for that same reason. I mean, that's obvious.
There you go. Perfect. So in this one, it is a game where you're going to be taking out a pandemic. It's very straightforward. You're going to be fighting viruses. This is Pandemic Legacy. Now, all 3 of these are great. But the one that I've had the most fun with is actually the newest one, Pandemic Legacy Season 0, where you actually are not going to be fighting a pandemic right off the bat. You're fighting against Soviet agents. So it's really fascinating that you are able to take this core pandemic system and apply it to so many new different scenarios. And I guess this is proven with things like Defenders of the Realm and the new one from Arcane Wonders. I forget what it's called, the superhero one. Freedom 5, Fantastic 5, something like that. But you can take this cool pandemic system and apply it to new situations and make a wonderful, tight, cooperative experience. And I love that about this. The randomness for the cards coming out, but it's kind of a controlled randomness where you know what the order is. I think it's wonderful. And Season 0 does some great things. As you can see here, you've got a passport on the board, and that whole passport system is wonderful. It really allows you to customize your character. And the way that the crisis outbreaks are done in this game is wonderful. So normally in a game of Pandemic, you're going to, when there's a cluster of 3 disease cubes and a new one comes out, you'll reveal another card and more disease cubes will come out. So it's, oh geez, things are really getting out of hand. But in this case, when you reveal a card, the bottom of the card will say something and something terrible will happen for that specific region. But it could be anything. It could be something that you don't see coming. It really could blindside you, or it could do nothing. And that's also great. So there's a lot of, yeah, go ahead.
I mean, without spoiling, is it for like other people out there? Because I mean, I get asked this question as well. It's called Pandemic, and yes, we're used to pandemic stopping a virus. So, without spoiling too much, is this like, does this actually care about a pandemic at any point, or is it a bit like the Fall of Rome ones, where it's like, oh no, it's not a virus anymore; it's just using pandemic rules, except now it's the Cold War.
I can't answer this question, Luke.
Yeah, I'm struggling to figure out how to answer it as well. It's like,
I can't. And if you like Pandemic and you like the theme of Pandemic, you should pay Pandemic Legacy Season 0. That's my suggestion to you. Yeah, if you like the idea of fighting against a pandemic, it's a great game.
As I say, we can't really say much more on it. Yeah. It's impossible without spoiling it. So we'll just have to let everybody else figure that one out. Yeah. But it's got on there. Alrighty, so my 7. Yes. Now, we're actually staying with Portal games, actually, funny enough. I didn't realise that they were going to be on the same list, shall we say. But there's a lot of games that are following this theme. This is, I do own both actually, I think I own about 3 different ones in this kind of, detective style deduction game, and well, funny enough, I kind of gave it away. It's detective, so yeah, the modern crime board game. But I'm not specifically thinking of the main campaign, because if anything, I like the main campaign in detective a lot, because obviously I love the game, but it was a bit long. 5 was too long. I, however, got a blast out of LA Crimes, the expansion one they did, for a few reasons. One, 3 stories, not 5. So you have only got to commit for 3 stories, not 5. It's just, you can wrap it up a bit quicker. You don't have to get the same group together for multiple sessions too much. But the story in it I thought was pretty good. All 3 scenarios felt very different, even though the plot was still overarching. There was a different feel to, certainly for the last act compared to the first act. But one thing that just sold me on this was just the immersion factor is turned up to 12. Particularly if you have any nostalgia for those 80s style cop movies, the buddy cop movies, because this is just dripping with theme from those ones. I mean, you can just look at the cover and this is like the Miami Vice, Beverly Hills Cop, Lethal Weapon style thing. Even the mug shots you get and the pictures, they all look like photographs taken from that time period. Everything is authentic as can be in this. And
I love that the police reports are even printed on this fax paper. It's so cool.
Yeah, because normally you've still got that typing in what do you call it? The
The
Asteris or
database,
whatever
yeah.
it was. Yeah, the
Antares.
database. But yeah, the piece report you get is on those old fax papers with the rip-off whole bits on the side.
Yeah.
It was stupid and annoying. You could it's come off of one of those printers of which I gotta admit, I do love that. Even though the database is like a big blue screen and nothing
It's
else.
so
You can imagine it's
funny.
like your first Atari database or something. But if you play this, play it with a soundtrack and do what I did. Go onto your Spotify or YouTube Music, whatever you've got, and simply put on the soundtrack to your favorite 80s movie. I played this listening to nothing but Beverly Hills Cop, Lethal Weapon, Die Hard, all those soundtracks. And believe me, trying to solve a particular case or decide what you're doing, or like when you get into a story bit of like, all right, I'm going to tail someone, or was it scope out their place, and then Axel F comes on your Spotify. I was like, oh, it's like perfect. Absolutely perfect. It's like, so there's been single cases for this which I've enjoyed, and I still like the more, what do you call it, like the 5-1. I mean, that is a very complex story, and there's definitely a lot to learn in that. This one I think just like condensed it a bit more. Like 3 acts is easier to manage than 5, and it didn't go ridiculously outside the box as the first one did, because the first one you had to learn some pretty out there stuff on Wikipedia and that to kind of get some of the historical bits that go on it. This one felt more condensed. Like, this is your mini series of Miami Vice in a box. You still got, it's still not easy. It's not like this is a pushover. You can still fail this one hard if you're not careful, but it just felt like you were in this world, in this city, and it kept you there.
I absolutely agree with you. So this is actually on my honorable mentions. I just think that this one has a little bit too much reading, for my opinion. And a lot of people think of this more as work than they think of as play. But I love this. I love this game. I love this system. I think I totally agree with you with this as well. I think that the LA Crimes is the best version of this. It's short, as you were saying, and I think that really helps with remembering things from campaign to campaign, because in the first one, my goodness, if you forgot like a little detail in the first story, it could really come back to haunt you. And this one is, you're able to keep up with it some more, and I think that's huge.
Yeah.
But I wish I could argue with you on this one, but man, it's good. I love this. I love this.
I mean, I don't have a problem with the too much reading. I've still got Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective on with it. If you want too much reading, you play that game. That is too much reading. But this one, I thought it's a bunch of cards, but you've still got to read a fair bit in Chronicles of Crime. You've still got to read text on the app as it comes through. So I didn't feel like this was like overly a ton of reading, or at least no more than I could do. But playing it solo, because I don't tend to play this one in the group, perhaps it's something I don't notice as much. But they're kind of steering away from the whole campaign setup and just going for single cases now, which I got to admit I do prefer. I do prefer just having a nice one case. Make it as complex as you like, but make it one case so that once I'm done with it, the fact that I haven't picked up the game for another like month or two is not going to suddenly like screw me over.
So what do you think about the new Detective Season 1 versus the standalone adventures for just Detective as a whole? They did one that was by Matt Leacock recently, and then they also did the Season 1. What do you think about those two?
I haven't played the most recent like spin-off one that they're getting designers to do. I need to do that at some point. But
that one is great.
I have played... I've got it. It's in the box. I just haven't had a chance to play it. But I think I've got it anyway. I did a review of Season 0 or Season 1, whatever it was called. 10 out of 10, still love it. I actually recommend people buy that before the main campaign box because, well, it's 3 good cases, but they're standalone. Yeah, so if I want to teach this game to people, I can just do a single case from there. Whereas if you do the base box, you've got to do the 5-act campaign, and that's where you get problems. So, I'd say pick up Season 1 first, and then if you like the system and you want something a bit more in-depth and you're going to play with the same group, then go get the other like multi-act campaigns. But I don't think you should start with it, and I think even Ignacy admits that, so... Wow. Okay. Although I don't want to put words in his mouth, but why release Season 1 if as a standalone box, and not make it I must have original components. So I mean, I guess just pick your poison, really.
And then, are you excited for the Dune version of this game? No.
Well, I like the system, so part of me is like, okay, this will be cool, but I know nothing about Dune. I have Dune Imperium on my shelf, and I did a review of that game, but I went into it as a complete noob. I've not read the books, I don't read. I've not watched the old movie, people tell me not to. I've not watched the old miniseries, people tell me it's still got flaws, so it's like, well, what am I supposed to do then? And it's like, I'm going to watch the new movie when it comes out. and hope that fills me in, because frankly all I see is a barren, bland looking desert planet with some worms in it. It's like, okay, great, and spice is important for reasons. You know, this is my knowledge of Dune is non-existent.
I feel like it should be fine. Like, I know a lot about Dune through osmosis just by playing games with people that know Dune, and just, you know, I feel like I've got a pretty good hold on the way the world works. So I'm excited. It looks cool. Political intrigue in space. Let's do it.
I will definitely try it just because I like the system. But yeah, when they announced it, some people were going, "Oh my god, Dune! Yes, this will be amazing!" Because everything's now Dune. It's like, oh great, we're going to milk this one until it's dry now. But it's like, I saw it and I thought, okay, might be cool. But my lack of knowledge for Dune has kind of made me go, yeah, whatever. You know, it's like, I'll play it and hopefully I'll enjoy it. But like I say, I'm a complete Dune noob. All right, let's get on to sixes.
All right, my number 6 came out in the last quarter of last year, and this is going to be Etherfields. So Etherfields comes with 2 campaigns in its base box. It comes with the Harpy campaign, as well as, I don't know what the first one's called. It might be the Sphinx campaign, something like that. Anyways, so the Harpy campaign, go ahead.
Well, they had like a bunch of stretch goals, but I mean, the main one is just the campaign.
Okay. So it does have 2 campaigns in the main box, though. So once you finish the first one, it introduces you a second campaign. So you get to jump right into it.
Stretch goal add-on, yeah. So.
So the second campaign, though, is the one I want to talk about, because my goodness, it is so good. In the first campaign, what's up?
What was it called?
Harpy campaign. Harpy, I think. Harpy. So for Harpy campaign, you are going to take this foundation of the dream walking you've been doing in the first part of Aetherfields, and you are going to take your deck, and during the first part, your deck is going to get customized and modified, and you're just going to continue that through this new space, this new campaign. So I really like the second part of the second campaign, because it introduces new and unique dreams that kind of really push the boundaries of the Aetherfield system. It adds a lot of innovation and uniqueness to the scenarios, and it tells some great stories with what you're doing. In addition,
the first one already did a pretty good job on the dreams being unique. I'm curious as to how much more they can be, but
that's what I'm saying. Go figure. This second portion really takes the ideas of the card-based lane system and really twists it, and I think it does a wonderful job with it. Now, the biggest part of this second campaign is the fact that you're going to be knowing you're going to know more about the story as a whole. And I think that's huge, because you have a better idea of what's actually going on in the dream world. And it adds, in the first part, I felt more that I was just kind of wandering and doing things to do things. And this one, I feel like I have more of an idea of what actually is happening and what I'm doing as a dreamer. So I really like the individual cards that you're going to get from playing this campaign. As you play, you'll interact with experiences that are going to add cards to your deck. And the cards from these dreams are super thematic. I don't want to spoil anything because they are so good, but you can find some really unique things during this second half that really will make you feel like a different player, and I think that is amazing.
One thing I'm going to ask, though, so thematically that sounds amazing. Yeah,
yes.
Like another campaign that explains a bit more about the world, etc. And that. Does it fix the mechanics, though?
So which mechanics do you have issues with? So I know a lot of people don't like the slumbers.
Yeah, the Etherfields was one I backed. It is currently on the floor over there, and the only reason it is still in my house is because I am waiting for this new rule set to come in to probably fix the game, because
so
this frustrated the hell out of me. I had to give this one a 5 out of 10 when I reviewed it, because there was so much. I loved the world, I loved the art, and I loved the whole dream stuff. Like the main dreams were cool. I could not stand, though, those slumbers and the grindiness of this game. It was beyond. I mean, Tainted Grail has problems in that fact. This one took those problems and just like emphasized them like crazy, because you're doing that stupid Ring of Roses thing on the mini maps to get keys. I house rule that you don't need keys anymore, because frankly, they serve no purpose other than unlocking dreams. They're just there to pad the game out. Yeah,
you can use them to discard morphines. That's a thing you can use keys for.
Then maybe I'd leave that in or something. I mean, I didn't do that very often anyway. I let the bad guy get morphines and just dealt with him. But that whole grind like killed the game because of having to constantly go around and get those keys meant that you did those mini slumbers ad nauseum. You know, I'm cool with going into a thing and going, right, the puppet master is now a slumber that you have to fight every now and again. Like you found him in a dream and now he's going to come back and screw you over. I would have been fine with that had you faced him once. I've lost track of how many times I had to face that stupid dream shadow behind your shoulder or whatever the first one is that you come across or something. And that just got really annoying. The grind in this game, and I knew this was going to be grind as soon as I saw them say, we've got hundreds of hours, like over 100 hours of content in this box. Yes, that's because you pad the game out like crazy. World of Warcraft probably would only take you about 12 hours to complete the game if it didn't require you to grind 100 pigs for leather on a regular basis. You know, I used to play World of Warcraft like crazy, but you know, that's the problem with this game. It's like it probably only takes you about 20 hours to play the game if it didn't pad it out like crazy. And
so they do have that fix that you're looking for. They've introduced it. It's very similar to the story mode version of Tainted Grail. They have the fix now. It's out. I believe it's on the emails to the backers, or maybe it's on their updates, but they do have it. And it's pretty straightforward. Basically, they do exactly what you said. They say, hey, you're just going to skip and go to the next thing, but you're going to start with like 2 wounds and 5 card seal. So it simulates the idea that you fought a couple of things. So it's something like that. It's very straightforward. So if you don't like it, it's very easy to skip. And like you said, you can... Yeah, go ahead.
I knew they were doing it. I didn't realize they'd finished it. Or I needed to look, because at some point I do want to get this back to the table because I do love the setting and I paid enough for it. But I didn't buy the Sphinx campaign. I literally just bought the main box with the Harpy in it because I thought, okay, let's not go mad here because this could be a problem here. And thankfully, I'm glad I didn't spend tons on it. But I want to try it with that new rule set and do a video on whether it fixes it for me or not because I want to give this game a second chance. But
they don't have like the official printed version of it. They said that they're going to include that with the next wave of expansion stuff, like a card that you'll slide into your little divider thing. Yeah. But they do have the actual like thing. I guess you just print and play it.
I just didn't know that they actually sorted it out. But I mean, yeah, I hope it works after that point because that grind just drove me nuts. And
I say give it a try.
I don't like the idea, though, that it's saying, oh, you take a couple of wounds and a 5-card seal. And it's like, yeah, but you're still punishing me. I mean, the game's not easy. Anybody who plays this on like hardest difficulty, I swear, is a masochist because, you know, some of these games are just like, oh, we're going to punish you for every little thing you do. And the game's already got quite a bit of luck in some of those scenarios. I mean, some of the times you're, all right, pick A, B, or C. Well, how do I know which is which? You don't. Just pick one and see what happens. It's like, well, you know, don't punish me for picking a random choice and then, you know, screwing me over for it. These bosses are not curious. Easy.
Oh, go ahead. What dreamer are you using if you're playing this game?
I played solo and I used the green dude. Is he the guy?
Okay, I would recommend use the blue one. Blue or the yellow. They are the best for if you're on your own. Just in general, they're the best. The blue one can get extra actions, and the yellow one lets you re-roll stuff, and that's huge because you're going to want to be rolling for free actions every turn. So I would recommend those two. Green one kind of sucks. I would not play the green one.
God, he sucked. Yeah, it's like I got to get a bunch of progress cards in it. Yeah, let's say I'm going to have a look for that rule set, and I'll try and get this one out to the table again soon. But moving on, like I say, not on my list until I try this new rule set out. So maybe it'll fix everything for me. But part of me is like, but then I'm going to miss out on those little slumbers. But then you should have corrected the rule in the first place. It's a tough one, but hopefully it will do the job. So with my one, we'll see my number 6. Right, this is a crossover in terms of game, but not campaign. So, yeah, I do agree that one of the campaigns that this game did was great fun. In fact, I would say 2 of them are good, although the main reason is that I have not actually played the 3rd one, and I will get on to my reason. Well, there's several reasons why, but Legacy, yep. It's a solid Legacy game, but I'm not going to go for Season 0. I go for Season 1 of Pandemic Legacy. Now,
good choice.
I like both Season 1 and 2. Season 2's certainly a very different game, but I enjoyed that one fine. It's just, I don't know, it was very different, but I mean, that was one of the appeals. Season 1 was just like a nice, like, right, I'm familiar with Pandemic, I can jump straight into this and go straight into what I'm familiar with, but then it throws a pretty decent story overall, you know, not one that I'm going to like watch a movie of, shall we say, but it still does a pretty good one. But it threw in a lot of good surprises. Again, I'm not going to spoil, but you know, it threw you for a loop on certain occasions in a good way. Like, I got a suspicion this might happen, but okay, I didn't realize to that extent. Or something happens, it's like, okay, did not see that coming. That just screwed some of us over. Curses. And it made me look forward to the next game. Like, all right, we've played 7 games. Right, I really want to get to... Can we meet up soon so I can do game 8? Because I want to see how this like new development progresses. So, yeah, that one kept me going. And I think to follow what's going on and just familiarity, I'd put this one over the second one. I've still got the boards on my wall, actually, over there.
Oh, wow.
The finished boards are on... Well, I needed something for my wall, so I thought I'd put those on. Although they don't stay flat, so they're a problem to keep on the wall. So eventually I'm going to get sick and tired of them and bin them. But I look at the season 1 one over there, and it's like, yeah, I remember when that happened. I remember that happening. I remember why in season 2 we made Sao Paulo the biggest defensible like haven possible, because in season 1, I'm not saying Sao Paulo goes to pot in every game. I say no. So like, but in our particular game, let's just say that South America didn't do well. Okay. But I have not played Pandemic Season 0. I also, maybe I'll play it, but I am not keen on trying it.
Interesting. What makes you say that?
I've done 2 games of it. I feel like I'm done with Pandemic Legacy. I don't feel like I need this to be milked for all it's worth. It also requires me getting the same group of people that I was talking about a minute ago with King's Dilemma, which is like, we can't meet up very often and we're only getting so many games done at a time. And it's like, oh, I don't want this game to drag on for this long, because it's still like 15 odd games you got to play of this. It's not like it's going to be over and done with. And so with that particular group, I'm less inclined to take campaign games to them now. I just want to take one-shot games. We make an exception for things like Near and Far and that, because we all like those Ryan Lockett games. Yeah. But I also could not... maybe there's something in Season 0 that would throw me for a loop, but I could not give a monkeys about the Cold War theme. I like James Bond movies, okay? That's my limit of what I care about the Cold War. James Bond movies. That says it all, really. When I saw Season 0, I just looked at that box and the boards, and I thought, you had... standard blue, but at least you had a fairly, nicest looking production, nicest looking board. I'm sorry, but Pandemic Season 0 is ugly. Do you not agree that Season 0 looks ugly?
I love the aesthetic, I'll be honest. I love the way that it kind of looks like you're looking at this like real world map at the time. I think it's really cool.
But it's grey. You think Twilight Struggle looks horrible. This one is basically Twilight Struggle
All right,
in terms of aesthetics. And with like little red bits there. I mean, I thought like they cut corners on the production or something when I was looking at it. I mean, granted, I have not tried it, so I could be completely wrong about this. But yeah, like I said, that whole theme, when I heard it was just Cold War themed, I thought, okay, it's just like Pandemic Fall of Rome and all the rest, where it's like it's not technically a pandemic. I mean, maybe it is. I don't know. I don't know the plot, but because I've got to play it with that group and it's going to drag on and it's Cold War, I just thought, I'm not that caring about trying out Season 0. And
I can understand your hesitation about it. Yeah,
I might be missing.
I'm lucky enough to where my wife is my primary cooperative partner, so I'm able to get a lot of these games played. But if you have to get a group of 4 like that, I can understand. Like, do I play this or do I play something like Sleeping Gods? I mean, like, what do you pick, right?
Yeah, and I do not want to play the solo. That's the thing. If I play the solo and my friends find out, also they kill me because they're bigger Pandemic fans than I am. That's the thing. I like Pandemic, but I don't love it to bits. But they latched on the Pandemic like crazy. So, that's the other thing. It's kind of like I've played 2 legacy games of Pandemic. I'm kind of done. Iberia is on my shelf as a gateway game, but I don't bring it out all the time. So it's like maybe I'm just sort of kind of like, all right, I'm sick and tired of the word pandemic being stapled onto everything these days.
Gotcha.
Because that's what it does feel like. But as I could be missing out, but just at first glance, it's not reeled me in. Maybe there's stuff in it that I would love, but as I say, first bite is with the eye, and I'm sorry, but it's ugly. I'm calling it ugly. I'm sticking with that.
Each to their
each to their own, yeah.
Yeah,
each to their own.
So this is number 5, yes?
Number 5, yeah.
All right. So my number 5 is it's not the biggest game, but it is the most popular game on this list. I know, that one's pretty big, right? So this one we're going to talk about is a huge campaign-based game. It's only got, I guess it has 3 campaigns technically, but it's got one major campaign. And it also has a smaller version of it. But this campaign has you playing as a group of mercenaries trying to make your way in this world. And while you do this, you're going to be encountering the same evil force that eventually you're going to have to stop yourself. And that's going to be Gloomhaven. So Gloomhaven has you playing...
I was thinking, like, I don't recognize this game at all. And then as soon as I saw the box, it's like, oh, that one. Right?
Now, like Luke just mentioned, you probably don't know the story of this game. A lot of people will complain about the writing in this because, let's be real, it's not the greatest. Now, my recommendation is if you play this game, use the Foreteller app. So Foreteller has narration for the game, and they'll read everything for you. It includes sound effects and background noises, and it's wonderful. It really, like, I played this one 2 times through, and the second time I played with the narration, and my goodness, I really enjoyed it. So if you're going to play this, use the, oh my gosh, use the Foreteller app. So Gloomhaven does some great things in the world of campaign games. It sets you in this unique setting with multiple missions, multiple paths, and really kind of a never-ending story that you get to go on. But it keeps you engaged by offering rewards as you play. So it does this with level ups. So every time you play, you'll get experience that will lead to level ups, which gives you card unlocks. And it'll also give you your own private missions that you have to complete in order to retire. And when you retire, you unlock a brand new character. And that's huge. They're in these little boxes. So you pick the one you want to go after based on its symbology, and then you go for it. And then the same thing happens again. You get this new character. You get to learn their abilities. And then you get to go for your new goal. All the while playing in this game that is based on this wonderful tactical combat where you have these 2 cards and you get to really know your hand of cards really well as you play campaign game after campaign game. I really love the whole system in this game. I like the way the AI works with the monsters and their own initiative decks. I like the mana system, and I love the card system where you'll be playing them at the same time and figuring out what the best combination is based on what happens. So really enjoy Gloomhaven, and I specifically like the original versus Jaws of the Lion. Jaws of the Lion introduces the book, which is amazing. Oh my gosh. If they make the scenario book...
Jaws of the Lion is just Gloomhaven, but easier. I mean, it's the same game.
I wouldn't say easier. There's some scenarios in Jaws of the Lion that are super vicious.
Less complex.
I would say yes to that. It leaves out a lot of keywords, but the fact that Gloomhaven has the unlocks, it has new classes that you're getting, is huge. It's going to keep you coming back. Once you play Jaws of the Lion for like 12 or 13 scenarios, you're going to get to a point where like, okay, I'm just doing the same thing every time, and there's nothing I'm really working towards. And that's to
be fair, 12, 13 times. If you've played a game that long, then you can't say it's all samey if you stuck with it for 12 games.
When you're comparing it to like the 100 scenarios in the base game, though, I mean,
there's a reason
you come back and play them.
I mean, I couldn't get past scenario 6. So,
oh my gosh.
I mean, certainly, I was going to be surprised if it wasn't on this list for somebody. I mean, you were the only person who was going to put it on. Put it that way, because I don't know anybody. I don't know anybody who likes the story in this game. That was the one thing that made me think maybe it won't be put on the list, because as much as people love the game, nobody's coming out there saying this is the best writing for story, because it really isn't. I mean, generic is the poster child word for that. But I gave it a chance. I went through 6 scenarios of this game trying to think, come on, this is like, everybody is raving about this. This is going to be like potentially the number 1 on Board Game Geek, and lo and behold it was. And I just thought like, okay, what am I missing here? But I couldn't get on with it. I mean, the comments in there are actually kind of mirroring what I kind of feel like it. I mean, for starters, the difficulty spike in the first few missions was ridiculous. Like, would you like to get into this game? Would you like to be taught how to play Gloomhaven? Right, punch. You know, it punches you in the face repeatedly. But it also just felt very slow in the progression. Like you say, it's 100 scenarios. Give me 25 scenarios. But then let me build up quick enough so that in 25 scenarios, I feel like a god. Don't give me 100 scenarios, but mean that by the time we get to like 25 scenarios through, I might have just like upgraded from a toothpick to an actual spear. You know, I kind of wanted something a little bit quicker.
It does get to a point, though, in this game where if you are leveling up to be a god, the game stops being fun. Like, once you get too high, my goodness, it's gonna be a breeze. And I think that the challenge that this game presents is one of its charms. You get to decide, you have to really plan on what you're going to be doing, because ultimately it's a big puzzle. And I really enjoyed that about this.
But then I just put that down to bad design then. I mean, if your game is not scaled difficulty-wise to the point that it's too hard to begin with, then eventually gets to normal, but then eventually gets so easy that the end game, which is supposed to be the climax here, is boring, that's bad design. That's not good design. That's the way I sort of see it. But I mean, with this one, it's kind of a similar problem I had with Mage Knight. And I know they've been talking about that in the chat lots. I don't like Mage Knight either. But you were talking about the Euro mechanisms of this. I mean, it's generic fantasy, whatever. I'm kind of done with generic fantasy. I like the idea of leveling up and getting all cool stuff. It's too slow in this game, but I did like the variation of characters, and I thought they were all really distinct. So it's not like I hate everything about it. It certainly did have some stuff I liked. But I didn't get on with the Euro side of it. This one, like Mage Knight, felt more like a Euro game with a dressed-up dungeon theme shoved on top of it, as opposed to the type of dungeon crawl I like, which is a dungeon crawl with Euro mechanics maybe drizzled over it. Like I'm more the Descent type crowd. I want simplicity, streamline, kick the door down, kill the big dragon, get some cool loot from a chest, like the works. This one, the card system was okay, although I don't get why loot is an action. It's like, okay, there's some coins on the floor. I can pick them up. I don't need to spend actions to pick up coins on the floor. It seems a little bit insane. And why, when the mission finishes, can I not loot the whole area? It's like, I had that in the first campaign, which drove me nuts. It's like, we just killed the skeletal boss or whatever. And it's like, right, what was in that chest then? Oh, you don't find out. What do you mean? Oh, you finished the scenario. You now have to move on to the second one. It's like, excuse me, the chest is right there. It's like, I could literally go and open it right now. It's like, nope, you got to get going. It's like, come on, theme.
Now, Luke, did you play this solo or with other people?
Other people.
Okay,
really? This was group of four.
Interesting.
And 3 hours for a scenario. I'm sorry.
Probably not a good number, I will say. Yeah. So I would say play this game at 2 or 3, but with other people. I think having the opportunity for someone to be like, I'm not going to help, I'm going to go get the chest, is great fun. I think it adds a... Go ahead.
Well, that's what I wanted. No, I mean, I get what you're saying. Yeah, I wanted that as well. But I mean, just the idea that it takes an action to do it and you have to do it before the scenario finishes and that. I mean, the items were fine. Everyone goes on about the modifier deck and it's like this thing, and it's like, it's just a custom die. Get over it. It's not innovative. It's just he just couldn't be bothered to make a dice and just made you cards. You know, fair enough. You're not going to notice too much with it. But it got complicated as well. I mean, look at this one here. Oh, I can't. Get back. Yeah, this one here. I mean, I'm looking at these abilities, and it's just like, seriously? Can I just say whether I want to attack or defend or charge or something? I don't need this whopping great big flow chart here to explain one particular action that I'll get to do once per 3-hour scenario because they take too long to do.
Now, I would completely agree with you on this. However, I think the fact that you start with all of your cards and you are going to be familiar with those cards really helps with that, because you're going to know what that card does because you decided on it. You picked this card. And the fact you can decide when you want to play it, I think it's huge. If you have like a giant deck of cards and you were shuffling it and you just drew them and you weren't sure what you're going to get, I think it'd be a huge issue having cards with that much text. I mean, we're not playing Yu-Gi-Oh, man.
Well,
I mean, so...
Well, yeah. I mean, granted, it's got too much text on it. I mean, if they just streamlined that a bit, but then gave me the tactical thing of, right, draw 5 cards, this is what you got to work with, I'm fine with that. I like that sort of thing. You've got a lot of things to look at in your starting hand, which is why people freeze up with analysis paralysis going into it. But also the fact that, you get rid of the card, so it's gone for good. It's like, I do this I've done pick up coins, and apparently I can no longer pick up coins for the rest of this map because the card's gone. It's like, it's not like I forgot how to pick up coins, and they say, all right, it's your stamina. It doesn't take much to bend over and pick up some cash.
You can always pick up coins just by ending your turn on them. You don't have to spend an action.
Well, even with the other stuff like move, and because I mean, the first scenario is just 3 rooms.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Granted, lockdown, I'm not as fit as I used to be a few months ago, but I'm pretty positive even now I could survive a couple of sword fights in 3 rooms before I was knackered, to the point where it's like, seriously, these adventurers suck. The fact that you can barely do 3 rooms, like 2 rooms and a corridor, before you topple over in exhaustion. It's like, seriously? It's like,
I've never gone to the gym with skeletons, so I can't comment on that. So
I don't know. Anyway, I've given you enough garbage on this. I say, if you're... More people.
Man, 4 out of 10. Oh.
I gave it a chance, but no, I mean, this is one of the most overrated titles I've seen on BGG. But like I say, there's
All
more
human. I
Gloomhaven.
understand.
There is more Gloomhaven fans than there are people like me who don't like it. So believe me, people who watch this later who are massive Gloomhaven fans are going to give me such garbage, and they're going to be totally on your side. I guarantee it. But feel free to give me garbage over some of my picks. Like I say,
Oh, absolutely. I'm waiting for it, but you've picked good ones so far, so I'm waiting for it.
You won't get. I don't have garbage picks. This is whatever. Just to sort of like, so I don't get screwed in the comments, right, people? I did actually say before this went live, you are free to grill me like crazy. Oh, sorry. So if I put on the choice you don't agree with, you can grill me till next week, and I'm totally fine with it because that's what's good about this. It just happens that
you gotta love the banter, right?
Yeah, I know, but it's just that I've had more reason to grill you than the other way around, so it does seem a little bit one-sided. But anyway, right, let's move on. Oh, God, we're only on 5s. Oh, well, this will be a long stream. Deal with it, guys. Number 5, right, we're going on to an LCG now. I love the co-op LCGs. I've got 3 of them in my collection, and it took me a while to decide which cycle I liked the most out of this one, but it was kind of a toss-up between 2, and at the end of the day, it came down to, right, okay, I like both of them for story, but mechanically, which ones were better? And for me, Lord of the Rings LCG wins over with the Grey Havens. I was tempted between this and the Ired Mithrin one or whatever it is, the one that Wilds of Ravania. It had you fighting dragons and drakes, which I thought was pretty cool. And spiders. Why does it always have to be spiders? I've had enough dealings with them recently, like fighting them off in Lord of the Journeys of Middle-earth.
So your journey, yeah.
But Grey Havens, I thought, was a really good cycle. I mean, mechanically, it throws in some really good scenarios. You've got sailing, so you take your ships, you can pick what ship you want, and you're chasing other ships. You've got the sailing test to make. You've got ship battles, which is really cool. The player cards that they threw into it, both like the heroes and events, they really opened up some really good archetypes in there. Artwork was stellar because I'm a fan of sea-based artwork in the sense, like water-based artwork, so ocean, landscapes, islands, that kind of thing, archipelagos is something I like the look of. But the plot for it was generally pretty cool. You were fighting off Corsair pirates and you had to go explore islands, and this was, I think, the first, there's not many pictures, unfortunately, but it was one of those ones where it put you on an island and it made you actually explore the island. Like, it wasn't just a linear path. You had all the different bits and you're like, right, let me just move to that spot, flip it over. Oh, it's that location. Okay, that's a cliff. I can't go any further in that direction, so I'm going to need to go back round. So it made it more immersive in the fact that I'm actually exploring as opposed to just going through the scenario, Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. So that was always a really good one. As I already mentioned, player cards were great, but some scenarios from this, I just have such good memories. I mean, here's like some of the Lost Island cards. So this is what I'm on about. You explored the island itself. But I remember having to go like in an underwater tomb. I remember having to invade a Corsair city, defend a harbor. But the favorite scenario out of this box was, I think it was called The Thing in the Depths or something like that. And it's 2 acts. You start off fighting a Corsair guy that you've been chasing. So it's like, okay, ship battle, there's your boss, take him out, survive for a bit, deal with other Corsair enemies and that. And then halfway through the scenario, when you get through the first act, suddenly Kraken appears. Like, tentacles start like swarming the ship and that. And you basically just sort of take a look at, it's the classic cliche from movies, where you take a look at your like enemy there and you're just like, yeah, that, like go fight. And suddenly he's your ally and you're fighting the Kraken. And it's like, that's just such a great scenario. Like that's two halves completely different, and like now you've got to take out this giant monster and you kind of in a temporary truce, while with your enemy. It's kind of like, yeah, we could kill each other, but that thing's going to kill our ship, get going. And out of all of them, I just thought, yeah, for story and memorable scenarios, Grey Havens had to win through.
So I can't give you any grief on choosing Lord of the Rings LCG. I'm actually playing through the Grey Havens right now, which is kind of crazy that you put it as your number 1. But I do disagree with you. I don't think this one is the strongest scenario. I don't think that this is the best campaign. I think the best campaigns are actually the Saga campaigns. I really like the Hobbit Saga campaign. I think it's incredible. You go through a story you're familiar with, but you get to live it. And I think that is amazing. I think they did a great job taking it from page to adventure. And I think that this scenario in particular, the Grey Havens, introduces a lot of concepts that a lot of the LCGs that Fantasy Flight has made in the future, they use them a little bit better in their scenarios. So I know you were saying that you have other LCGs by them, like Marvel Champions and I assume Arkham. I think they take the exploration mechanic and use it well there, and I feel like they are introducing new vehicle scenarios in these games, and I feel like there'll be some more additional add-ons that fit their game system as well.
Well, this one came out first, and I must admit, I did contemplate. I mean, I think the runner-ups were that Eoward Mithram one, and I did consider the Lord of the Rings main, whatever they call the Black Riders and so forth, because I did think that was good. I wasn't a huge fan of the Hobbit one. I thought the scenarios were a little bit, well, it was fine, but the one scenario was like kind of hit and miss as to whether it were like based on luck of the draw. And I thought the Battle of Five Armies, once you got to that stage, was like, oh, Jesus, how impossible do you want the scenario to be? And it was also a similar problem I had with the Black Rider ones, because that one goes on forever. This one, at least, it's one cycle and you're done. Whereas that one, I think you've got like 4 or 5 deluxe boxes. It's like, okay,
that's true. You have 4 deluxe. It might be 6 actually. 6 deluxe boxes. Something crazy.
It takes a long time to get through that campaign, and bear in mind you're trying to succeed scenarios. I can't even get past Shelob yet. I haven't played the full campaign of it. I've got to Shelob, got stuck because I thought this boss character is just way too hard for my Hobbit deck, and and then I sort of quit, and now I need to go back and revisit it at some point. But I mean, I've done standalone plays for like the last deluxe set, and it's just like, the difficulty spike just goes through the roof, and that kind of kills my enjoyment up to a point. This one, the Grey Havens, I will say, one of the scenarios, particularly I think the last couple, or certainly the last one, is quite a difficult one, and that is a flaw of the Lord of the Rings LCG. But I'm not going to fault. If that one's your favorite, then great, because it was a runner-up. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And this, the Grey Havens, it takes your card pool in mind, which I think is great. I mean, they say, okay, these cards have come out, your difficulty is probably going to be about this. And they introduce some great cards here, like Círdan the Shipwright. I love decks with him. Just any kind of like, I forget the name, the decks where you're drawing and discarding a bunch of cards and manipulating that. I think it's super fun. So really, I really like this set though, so I can't complain.
I think that was another thing. The player cards, I think, also sort of picked up. I mean, there were some great Hobbit cards in that Black Rider set, but I can't remember like some of the other ones that they had. So yeah, that's a good one. Very quick question that I will just answer. That Fatal Pippa like, did you see the Siege expansion for War Chest? It has come out. I've not bought it because, to be honest, I don't know how much longer War Chest is going to be in the collection on the basis it's not getting played. I do love the game, but it's not one there. So yeah, number 5. Yeah, that was number 5. So we've done your number 5, haven't we?
Yeah, we did.
Gloom. Yeah. Oh yeah, we did. Gloomhaven.
Gloomhaven, your favorite game, right?
Yeah, totally my favorite. Right?
Absolutely.
Moving on to 4s.
All right, number 4 is my newest game to the list, and this is probably the best game I played in 2021. And I was super impressed with it. This is one that I've played on my...
Oh, wow, you played. I was going to say, not a lot's been released yet.
Correct. So this game is one that I've played on my own, and I've also played cooperative. Fantastic. One of the best adventure games I've ever played. You might be looking at it. This is going to be Sleeping Gods. Yes.
There's only one that fits the description.
Yes. So Sleeping Gods, the new game by Ryan Lockett. This is going to have you exploring this huge map, and that's the core of the game. You go explore, you go do stuff. You take place as the crew of the Manticore, and you need to find totems to get back home. And that's the entire spiel. Honestly, when you start the game, you might feel like you really don't know what to do, but if you keep that idea in mind that you're looking for totems, that's really what matters. And the way that the best part about this campaign game is the way that your entire board will grow. And what I mean by this is you start the game with 4 cards. And these 4 cards will give you some type of ability. You can cook something, you can manipulate something, and you can draw something. That's it. You're really familiar with those 4 cards. You start with them every game, awesome, you got this cool stuff. But as you play, you're going to get more things added to your repertoire of skills. You're going to get more crew members. You're going to get more weapons, more abilities. And you're going to be adding this giant tableau in front of you of abilities. And by the end of the game, you're going to have like 50 of these cards in front of you, but you're going to know what all of them do. And it's kind of crazy because you started with 4 and you're adding 1, and people might come and look at your board and be like, what the heck is this? But you know all of these cards because you earned them and you use them. It's kind of wild. What were you going to say, Luke?
I was going to let you finish that, but yeah, I mean, I agree. By the time I finished, because I have finished the campaign of this one, and I had so many cards in front of me, I thought, seriously? And I was scared going into the solo because I thought, I got to look at 9 characters. This is going to be too much. And it's like, the 9 characters, from a solo perspective, are not difficult. You literally, these characters are basically just, I have 2 little abilities that you won't even use on a lot of them. It varies. But and you can have 2 cards on each. They've got their own like 3 or 4 level up cards, like experience wise, and they've got the skill icons which kind of power you through challenges. That's pretty much all you need to know.
They're essentially resources, which I think is a great way to take them. They are characters, so they do have a part in the story. When you're reading, you might see one character says something. You grow a relationship to those characters. We had one character in our game, I don't even remember her name, but we called her Becky because she just didn't do anything and complained all the time. She took like all her damage. This poor girl. But it was.
Is there somebody I should be like apologizing to with this one?
I don't remember her name, but oh man, it was really funny because we like never used her abilities. So we'd always make sure to level up. But later in the game, she got better. We made sure to level her up some.
To be fair, I did the similar thing actually, because the thing is, when you've got 9 characters, you do have you do have like 4 or 5 that you focus on, and they're like your bread and butter. But then there's a dump character who gets all the stick. Gregory was mine. Yeah, Gregory was
Gregory. He's the best character. The Doctor. He's so good.
I didn't
Gregory is our man.
I didn't get poisoned enough to care, and I was more dealing with low morale for a few things. So it's like the captain sorted that out, and I didn't get too many of the status effects, and a lot of the other things I was just eating lots of recipes. Like the cook was like more useful at that, but also very Kanan that became like really good. In fact, why am I talking about this so much? Well, because for the first time ever on any of these collabs, it's a crossover on the same number.
Excellent. Great choice.
It's a open-ended campaign, and that was the thing. I mean, I thought, can I put this higher? But the one thing that stops it going a little bit higher is because, in terms of the main plot, it literally is, you're in this world, you're on a ship, get totems, wake the gods, the end. That's literally what the main plot is.
Correct.
But it's open-ended, so the story you tell in between, you kind of make up as you go along. And that's like the one thing that sort of stops it going a bit higher, because it's kind of like, right, there's not really much of a structure here. It's more just, you come across you come across stuff at random. They are plot arcs in themselves, but it's not like I say, the main story arc is pretty basic. It's what you tell in between that's really, really good. And as I say, I know it sounds negative, but it's still something that's really cool with the game. I don't overly
so wonderfully. Absolutely. Like, this is the best version of this game, in my opinion, of that open world idea. I think it takes that concept and runs with it super well.
Not to mention it's beautiful as I'll get out. I mean, I love Ryan Lockett's artwork on everything he touches, and this is no exception with the Atlas book and that. But no, I mean, I had to burn through this campaign like crazy earlier this month to get it played in time for this, and it's like, right, great. I'm glad I did. Although I do have to make a slight correction to the podcast episode I did the other week where I did my first impressions. This was like first impressions after a few hours of play. I ragged on it a bit for its difficulty, and I still think that it could be a little bit easier in certain places with the challenges, because you quickly get to those challenges of high levels quite fast. But I was really ragging on it for its combat being too hard. I got a rule wrong. And it was quite a quintessential rule. I was playing it on normal difficulty, but for the combat, I might as well have been playing it on super hard hell on toast mode, because it literally was making my game experience bad. And it was because the combat that you have, you put like heart tokens on the enemy as like body limbs, like hacking off the arm, the head or whatever, and you take off effects. Some of them have got 2 and 3 written on them. Now, the correct rule is that you need to do at least that much damage to that part to put the token on it. It's 1 token per square. That's fine. When you play it that way, the combats are actually relatively balanced. I actually played it, though, where I interpreted the rules somehow where it wasn't 1 token per space. It was the fact that I had to put 3 tokens on that 1 square in order to kill off that part. And
I thought that was the rule.
No.
Oh, that's what we're playing. Oh, man, really?
And you've not been like ragging on the game for difficulty
spikes? We thought it was great.
How on earth are you surviving? It's impossible with that difficulty.
I'm not going to say we're good at the game, but we may be good at the game.
No, because
just let people take hits, I guess.
Because I thought you could only put 1 token at a time on the square, but it's not. It's that you can only have 1 token on the square, period. So I thought when a heart 3 symbol came up, it meant I had to attack the creature 3 times at least to get that one covered, on top of all the other bits. But all the while, every time you're attacking it, it's counter-attacking you back. So I thought, this is way too much damage. I've got to heal up every time. These higher difficulties are ridiculous. And I thought, this game is broken. But, somebody is, like Vincent's just said, this is why you're like the Doctor character, because you're having to heal up so much. But,
there you go.
But No, the correct rule
And
is
maybe
that
I'm
it's one.
saying this incorrectly. It's like, so if it says 3 hearts, right? 3 of your damage that you just dealt goes on that, and that's for the token,
Yes.
right? And that's it. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
that's okay. That's how we've been playing. Okay, the way you
Oh,
described
right.
it sounded like it was some nightmare scenario. Okay.
Well, no, I mean, I was playing it because I had to attack the creature
Oh
3
my-
times at least to
How
cover
did
that
you-
squares.
Where
Yeah, how did
you
I
get that
survive?
from?
Well, the rulebook's not great. You got to admit, the rulebook
Yeah,
has some issues.
yeah, you're right there. Yeah.
And I just read it fast. I misinterpreted it, you know, and like once I think I know the rule correctly, I'll stick with it because I'm playing it
Yeah.
by myself. It's not like anyone can correct me. It wasn't until someone pointed it out in a comment and it's kind of like,
You've changed the world.
well, I played the rest of the game. I switched to easy mode when I thought, okay, this is too hard. But I also put that rule correction in. And then when I put that rule correction in, it's like, yeah, actually, you know what? I could play this on normal mode. I think this is relatively balanced now. So it's like, as I say, that's the whole point of it being initial impressions, people, as I get over it. But yeah, once I got that correct, it's like, okay, cool. We're on to a good thing here. And so I got to enjoy the rest of the campaign for what it was. And I think, and then I'm not spoiling, there's like 13 different endings you can go. And I got the good ending.
And I think that's really cool about the endings is that if you do certain things during your quest, your ending could actually make itself very unique. Once you get through it one time, you'll kind of get hints as to what that could be. I haven't seen any of those super secret endings. I've actually got the same ending both times we played, but I am excited to kind of go and see what these additional endings could be and how to achieve those.
Did you get the ending that was, in my terms, good? Like you will survive?
Yes.
You must have had to go to a specific place then and do that quest line. Or maybe there's another way to get it. I don't know. Or maybe there's 2 or 3 endings that are technically good. I don't know. Like I say, the ending I got, I thought you had to go to a very specific place and do a very specific quest line to get that ending.
I think my endings were very generic, but still good, if that makes sense.
Hard to say, but as I say, I mean, I want to get to the table again and play through for the open-ended thing on top of that. But then the same group who loves my near and far and that wants to play this with me. And it's kind of like, this is like the one exception to that rule where, okay, we'll play this campaign because I know they want to play it. But at least I'll know the rules in advance. So, all right, that's that. But yeah, so we crossed over on this one, so we can move on to... Yeah, I'd say first time I've had a crossover on the same number. That's definitely going to be one for the history books, I think. All right, moving on to freeze. But
all right, my number 3 is one of my favorite games ever. It's an incredible Euro game, and it is Maracaibo. So I don't know your opinions on Maracaibo as a whole. I know you're not a big fan of Great Western Trail, but...
God, no. But, well, before you start, I mean, Maracaibo's on the shelf. I do like it. I don't know how much longer for, but it is on the shelf, and I do like the game.
Good.
But I am definitely going to disagree with you about putting it on this list for a good campaign. But first, you give it praise. You give it praise first.
I'm going to praise it first, and you can try and tear it down. So Maracaibo is a Euro game where you play as a group of mercenaries in the Caribbean. You're going to be sailing around, doing whatever you want. It's pretty cool. It's pretty open-ended, but ultimately you're trying to get points. Points are made from hiring crew, completing quests, and exploring and fighting. So you're going to be doing all this stuff the best way you can throughout as you kind of sail through these different islands. Now, the best part about this campaign system is it is tiny. All you're going to be doing is adding a card. And this card comes from this deck of cards, and it's called the story deck. You place the card in front of you, and it will have some sort of additional quest that any player may complete. Now, it'll score you points just like normal, and generally the reward is pretty great. It's something that you do want to go out of your way to finish. And that's where this game shines. It seamlessly adds a little expansion to the game. And every time you complete this little expansion, a new thing will get added. It might add a new territory to the board. It might add new cards to the deck. It might add even more quests to the board. It might add new ways to interact with the Caribbean. It evolves the game as you play. Now, we've gone through this whole thing, and it's great because you don't have to play it with the same people. It's something you can just simply add that makes the game a living, breathing world. Your game is going to be different than everybody else's game, and I think it's wonderful. I think that this has one of the most simple, straightforward campaign games, and I like that it's really fresh and different from these giant story campaigns. You can play this once, throw in the campaign, come back to it in 2 months, and go play it again, continuing where you were. There's a little blurb that tells you what's happening in the world, and it's super easy to play with anybody. It reminds me of games like Oath from Letter Games, where you can simply bring this with anybody, and the game itself is the thing that's evolving. And I think that's such a wonderful addition. Now, this is the pinnacle of the campaigns that Alexander Pfister has done. He's done this before in games like Oh My Goods, which I think does it well, but I don't think it's as strong here. The components it's adding are simply cards. It also has done it in more recent games like Cloud Age. And Cloud Age actually does a job pretty well. It's going to add new actions that you can take. But I think Maracaibo's ability to add cards, add new pieces to the board, and add new quests and storylines is wonderful. All right, Luke, let me have it. Go for it.
Well, it's not that, although I feel that this person is a little biased. I can't put my finger on why this is a biased opinion.
Hi, Mom.
Yeah.
That's right.
Although I'm glad my mum doesn't watch my content. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right. I do like the game, but I much prefer this as a multiplayer game. Like, while playing it normal thing. I like the idea that it adds new stuff to the board. I mean, you say expansions, it's basically a few extra cards and that one space on the board changes. I mean, it's not the most dramatic changes in the world, but it's nice that it varies things up a bit. But I could not give a monkeys about any story in this game. I mean, this is a solo campaign for mechanics purely. There is no care about the story in this game of what's going on. And it doesn't even make sense when you think about it, because the rulebook stipulates that one cycle of the board, like sending the ship round, is a year or 10 years. I can't remember. Something like that. I don't know. Insert time.
A year, yeah.
Yeah, a year, right? First scenario, you come across a lady that you save from whatever, and she says, oh yeah, we do this. My father's rich. You should go visit him sometime. You don't visit him until you go around the board again. What, it took me a year to go visit this guy? What happened? It's like the worst invite ever. And
you all just start the game as children, and by the end you're like 90. That's really what it's all about.
It's like when you think about how much time is meant to be passing, none of the story elements make any thematic sense whatsoever. And I know that's just like, all right, fine, it's a Euro, who cares? But I just found that funny when I played it, because I just like, okay, I need to turn my brain off on that, because that was a thing. But as I say, with this one, I mean, I wouldn't also say, you said it was like one of the easiest ones to play. It's not the easiest solo game in the world. I mean, I suppose
this game in particular, you don't have to play it solo. This game, the campaign expansion, is good for any player count. If you're playing with a lot of people, you simply throw it in and boom, it's ready to go. The hardest thing it does is it adds a tile. That's all you're going to really have to put on. And then it might have one or two small things that you have to explain. And I think that's great. It reminds me of like a goodie box expansion where it's a really tiny tile that you add or a card that you shuffle in or something like that. Super low overhead if you know the game or you're familiar with mechanics. If you like Pfister's games in general, this one's a pretty easy one to get into. The hardest thing to understand is the cards. And once you know that, you can pretty much play the whole game.
So the overheads were a little bit on the fiddly side, because I mean, like when you have the multiplayer game, you use a set of cards and it's like tailored this way. But then when you set up the solo mode, you then go, hang on a minute, let me find the cards that specifically are for solo. And I think it's more that story card deck is a fiddly thing to set up in that. I like the idea that players can come in and go, but then that kind of destroys the story, because it's like I'm saying like, oh yeah, don't care about the story that's going on or whatever, because frankly, you're only in it for part 4 of whatever we're playing, and therefore you don't need to worry so much. So it kind of is, as I say, I mean, I didn't mind this one too much from a mechanical sense, but it's just the story was just completely destroyed for me from like the get-go. And that kind of put me off wanting to go through a lot more of the campaign. I just played the basic setup multiplayer. I mean, with some of the cards like thrown in, I'm happy. You know, I mean, this is the only Pfister game. Oh no, actually I do have Isle of Skye and technically Broom Service, although that was co-designed, does that count? But they're the Pfister games I've got, because they're the ones I like. But if
you're interested in trying any of the content without playing the story, you can play the very difficult mode of the game, and it just includes basically all the islands and all the expansion stuff. So I'd recommend that if you're at least interested in what the content it provides is and you don't like the story. So maybe try that your next time.
As for that, I mean, like I say, I mean, I don't mind what the baseboard has. It's nice at the edge. And maybe I'll revisit this one at some point, maybe just give it another go, just turning my brain off in the story and just accepting, all right, cool, let's just play the mechanics of this game. But I mean, because you mentioned like this is the pinnacle of the campaigns he's done. I don't remember Alexander Pfister being on a particularly high note when it comes to campaigns in general.
So it's mainly with like this weird incorporation of a campaign in a straight up Euro game and the campaign as a card. So I think this is his best version of this. Here's a card, you're in a campaign now.
Fair enough. I suppose like when I do a campaign, this is at the time when campaigns are just getting rolled into everything. Like every game's got to have a campaign now, and it doesn't count. Like The Crew has a campaign mode in it.
Yeah,
it's not a campaign. It's
not going to show up on your
scenarios.
list.
Yeah, think no. It's like, love the game, but it's not a campaign. Stop calling it that just to sell more copies. And like Fister, I feel like keeps doing this a little bit too much as well. Like, I mean, I don't know about Oh My Goods, but remember Expedition to Newdale?
I didn't play that one because I heard it was basically Oh My Goods.
It's basically Oh My Goods if you wanted to make it more lucky, take take 4 times longer to play.
Oh no.
And put in the most pointless story progression ever. Like, you can play like different board, like, and it's technically a story as you go through, but for crying out loud, I mean, I can't imagine falling asleep to anything like more bland. It's like, there is no point for that game to even exist. Oh My Goods was perfectly fine as a small card game. It did not need to be a 2-hour board game with luck. It just didn't seem to work with that. So I need to revisit this one. So this isn't really a garbage thing, but I think that's just my reason why it wouldn't make my list. The story just was nonsensical. This is purely cool from a mechanical perspective. Like I said, still on my
the
shelf.
Mechanical implementation is the best part, in my opinion. Story, not as much, but I still think it's a great flavor for the theme with the plague and whatnot going on.
Well, the theme. I mean, like I say, I'm not a big historical theme fan, so I mean, I didn't even buy this game because I cared about the Caribbean 17th century theme. It's like, when you've seen one of those themes, you've seen them all. This was the reason I got the game in the first place, and this is the reason I've still got the game. Well, no, the cards in general. That's the thing. But because I mean, the whole going round on the rondel, whatever. The whole 17th century thing, could not care. Leveling up on tracks again, Euro, could not care. I'm a sucker for multi-use cards.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that these cards have all got 3 uses and there's lots of different abilities and you cycle through the deck at hyper speed, seeing all these different cards and ways to play, that's what hooked me onto the game. So it's like I say, I still enjoy it. It's just that's the main reason why. Even though I do think that questing is pointless and you should never do it in any game. From a balance perspective, I much prefer the other ways of winning. Focusing entirely on quests will not win you the game, period. You're not disagreeing with me on this one.
I will say that if you are taking your action to quest, there's probably better uses of your time based on what the quest reward is. But if you're able to get a quest through exploring, or if you're able to get a quest through whatever the story's quest is, or if you're getting a quest to complete one of your own mini objectives, or if you're getting a quest through there's a city that gives you quests, those I would recommend. But you're probably right. If you're just getting a quest to score like a couple points, don't do that.
That's my strategy for the game. Is like, no, you got to do other things. Well,
don't do that.
Well, we spent a while on that one, but that's because we don't need to spend very long on my 3 because it is another crossover.
Oh, excellent!
But not Maracaibo. And I got to admit, I only changed my mind about this one this morning in terms of which campaign I preferred. And I almost sort of thought, like, as soon as you were talking about it earlier, it's like, yeah, probably this one is better if I think from a mechanical perspective more than a thematic perspective, certainly saying with that. But yeah, I agree. I love the story in Tainted Grail, and I almost did this morning have it as Fall of Avalon rather than last night. So it almost was like, not that I don't like the last, well, like I say, it's my vote, so I do prefer the last night just. I think story-wise, I kind of prefer Fall of Avalon. Like you meet more of the iconic characters. Everything's kind of going to pot as opposed to this one where it has already gone to pot. But it's still a really good story in this one. This one kind of like, it's not like the story is so much better in Avalon compared to this one. Both of them are fantastic stories. I mean, as much as I have to house rule some of the mechanics in this game, this is the thing with Awakened Realms. They make some of the best storytelling narrative adventures that I can think of. But they do need to think a little bit harder about their game design when they're doing these Kickstarter stretch goals. But the last night, I say, yes, does fix more of those problems. The Men Here grind is not as bad as this one. For the most part, it's not even there. But, occasionally you have to grind for a couple of things, but it's nowhere near as bad. The only thing I will say about the last night that you must house rule is Frostbite. If you don't house rule Frostbite, this game will tick you off quickly. Because
what do you do for your house rule?
Well, with the Fall of Avalon, I house rule the Menhirs, and there's loads of different variations of that. I personally say that they've either got +1 range or you remove the dials, so that there's no timer on them. Your maximum limit is 3, but remove the dials. I think that's the best variant I've seen. Nice. Sometimes I do just +1 range so that you don't have to activate 6 or 7 of them just to get from one side of the map to the other. But the Last Night Frostbite rule in its normal form is that if you get given frostbite, lowers your maximum health, but the only way you can get rid of it is if something tells you remove frostbite. So you can't just simply rest and get rid of it. But the problem is, every time you move to a different place, not do any like action or anything, just move, the frostbite gets worse. And the only way to get rid of it is to go to a settlement, pay somebody or do something specific, and get it so it removes your frostbite. There's not that many settlements in the game. You could literally get frostbite at the worst possible time and then have to go at least 5 or 6 cards to the nearest settlement. That's assuming you even know where it is. And at that point, you are crippled beyond relief. You get rid of the frostbite, but then you've still got to then heal yourself up. The frostbite adds a difficulty spike grind that I just thought, as soon as I saw how the mechanic worked, I thought unacceptable. Like, this is way too punishing. You know, it was killing my experience, and I thought, oh, this is actually worse than the Many Here grind. I have house ruled, though, that you can get rid of frostbite by normal rest if you're at max health. So, as long as you have, because it lowers your maximum health, but as long as you have got to that maximum bit and then you rest, you can get rid of frostbite. But I hate.
Yeah, and I think whatever you need to do to make the game more like enjoyable, especially if it's a story-based game like this, that's more about the cooperation and the adventure. I think it's fine. I don't think it's a big deal.
But that's the thing, yeah. It's like it's one change that just made it. I mean, it's not like the game was a pushover at that point, but I just thought that the second it says, because sometimes you can't avoid the frostbite. You know, it's not like oh, I did a bad choice, therefore I got it. Sometimes the story just gives you it, or a location just gives you it. It's like, oh, great. So now, walking to the settlement, I'm going to be on like 2 health again. It's like, you go into a combat with low health and frostbite, you might as well just like cool game right there, because you're going to die. It's just like, you're not going to survive long enough. So that one, I just thought, seriously, in playtesting, they could have come up with a less punishing way of that. So I just put that house rule in so that when I get frostbite, it sucks. But I know that if I just, you know, eat a bit of food, just hang tight for a turn, get to max health and then rest, I'm good. You know, because you know, you should be able to rest and get rid of frostbite. You know, actually, no, that's a bad analogy, but it's, I don't know, I just felt like it needed to be a little less punishing. But other than that, once I put that house rule in, yeah, this was a great campaign to play through.
Excellent.
No, 2 more left. Although, if we're going to cross over on any more, it has to
I think we're going to cross over on 1, and I think it's going to be number 1. That's my guess. But I think that our choice on the actual campaign will be different. So I think the game for number 1 is going to be the same, but I think it's going to be different campaigns. That's my guess. What about you?
Well, let's see if your prediction's true.
All right, so this one is the biggest game, and this is Kingdom Death Monster. So in Kingdom Death Monster, you play as a settlement of survivors. And these survivors are forced to survive, go figure, in a nightmare world. The entire place is dark except for the light of your personal lanterns. And these lanterns are going to guide you through the darkness to go hunting gigantic beasts. And these beasts, you have to take them down, hunt them, kill them, skin them, and then use their body parts as resources to make new equipment for yourself, innovate new things back at your home, and, you know, make a nice, lovely bed for yourself. Nothing like a sofa made out of lion fur. I'm telling you, it feels great. So in Kingdom Death Monster, the campaign itself, you have 6 different campaigns right now. There are 3 major campaigns: People of the Stars, People of the Sun, and People of the Lantern. But there are also some mini campaigns known as People of the Bone, People of the Flower. Each of them introduces new rules, but the 3 big ones introduce timelines. And these timelines are going to give you specific events that you'll go through as you play every Lantern year. Each game is mainly comprised of about 25 Lantern years, which means 25 of these cycles where you're going to hunt, kill, and then come back to the settlement in order to, you know, kind of fix everybody up. So the campaign that I choose in particular is People of the Lantern. It's just the basic one. So this is the one that you get out of the core box. It has the most ability to customize, though. With People of the Lantern, you can include any of the expansions that you wish, and that can really increase or decrease the difficulty as you see fit. Now, I've never won this campaign. I've played this game for about 3 years, and I've never won. I've gotten to the final boss once, and I got destroyed. It was terrible. But my gosh, do I keep on coming back to this game. I am playing a game right now that I've been playing for about a year with my friend Robert, and my goodness, This is the one. I'm feeling it. This is the one we're going to win, finally. We're min-maxing everything, and it's going to be great. But my goodness, the campaign structure in this is wonderful. Everything you do compiles. If you have a rough first couple of years, that's going to matter in a couple of years from now. Your innovations that you make early will allow you to unlock different innovations in the future. Your results from one thing really will impact those futures. And I think that's huge in a campaign game, especially one that's 25 missions. And when you play this game, you're going to play probably 2 missions in a row. So it's going to be like 12 weeks most likely to play. Can be longer, can be shorter, especially if you die. It could be much shorter. But the game itself really rewards planning and executing those plans. And I think that's huge in a campaign game of this scale. Do you have any familiarity with Kingdom Death Monster or this Nightmare World?
I think all I can say about it is ... because I have not even seen this on the table, let alone played it or know much of it. I mean, the thing is, as I try to go through these pictures, the one thing that stuck out with me with Kingdom Death Monster is like, oh god, it's a Kickstarter with too many miniatures, because every picture is miniatures. It's like, somebody show me a picture of the gameplay. It's like, because everything is just painted miniatures.
Go back one space. So that one right there. So that is the main gameplay. It's a boss battler at its heart. Have you played the game Monster Hunter by chance?
I actually play Monster Hunter World every Friday with some friends. But yeah, I mean, that or Dark Souls, this kind of feels like, but yeah.
So yes, it's kind of Monster Hunter in the Dark Souls universe. So you have this showdown board, which is what you're seeing in front of you here. And your monster, your boss, is going to be the middle, and you control 4 survivors. It's a very straightforward tactical game where you are going to be taking your survivor and you get a movement and an act. You'll be moving up to it. Generally, you're going to be attacking it. And based on how you hit, you'll hit different hit locations. And I love that part about this game. You go ahead.
That sounds good from a gameplay perspective. I mean, one thing that put me off, one, it was Kickstarter only. So I was like, all right, well, if I can't get it by normal means, I'm not going to bother. Secondly, everybody just kept talking about the minis and not the actual gameplay. And it's like, oh, it must be a great game then. But, could not tell.
So the company is known for its miniatures. So that's what they started off with.
Yeah. Free, as you said, stupidly punishing or stupidly hard. And I thought, if you're going to tie me to a 12-week, like 25 mission, I mean, I think 25 missions is a bit much, because this is one thing I find with campaigns in general. Like, everyone goes on about Gloomhaven sort of saying, like, oh yeah, it's got all these scenarios. And it's like, how many people realistically, unless this is the only game you play ever, are going to see all that content? It's just too much. You can have too much of a good thing. And so I'm glad, I'd like to see an end eventually to a campaign, and with that I just wouldn't. This one, like 25 missions, I think would get insane. The theme's gritty and dark. I like that. I would not have a problem with that. I was quite amused that somebody had said, like, Kingdom Death Monster has a story. I didn't even realize it had a campaign. I thought it was just a bunch of scenarios.
So it has multiple campaigns. The first one has you kind of just exploring your existence and what you are. Some of the other campaigns, though, are really fascinating. They do this one, it's called People of the Stars. This is one where you play with the Dragon King expansion. And instead of waking up and just kind of surviving your own, the Dragon King finds you and he says, hey, you're going to come live with me. And he watches over you and he trains you to become like him. And it's really fascinating. So just things like that, this weird ideas and these weird stories they can take you on. Super fascinating.
This is one I'd play if someone said, look, like someone lives local to me and says, we're going to play a campaign of Kingdom Death Monster. I have everything. It's already made. Do you want to play it? Then I'll play it. But this is not one that I'm going to seek out, build it, and like try and get a group together. Because where was it? There was it. Yeah. Is the Hexy great? Do you have to build the minis?
So that is the one reason I didn't want to play this game. Now, in answer to your question earlier, Luke, this is not Kickstarter exclusive. You can buy this at their shop. They have it available. It's about like $350 for the entire thing. It's really expensive, but it does come with like 1,000 miniatures, something like that. But yes, you have to build them. Great. You're not wrong. So that's the reason I like this game, though, is because I hate building miniatures, but I built them for this game because I like the gameplay so much. But yes, you got to build them. It's terrible.
I'm not building miniatures. I'm sorry. I've done Games Workshop already in my life. Fair enough. That's a hobby, in itself. Like, I'm going to build these miniatures and that. I want a board game. I want the miniatures built. The new one, the Aliens one that Gale Force 9 did, when I found out you had to put those minis together, end of. I don't care. I'm sorry. I ain't got time to assemble your minis because you couldn't be bothered to pay for them to be assembled in the first place. You're going to cut those sort of corners, especially with this. Like, I'm paying $350, and bear in mind, this is probably American, isn't it?
This is American dollars, yeah.
Yes, that's $350 plus another $1,000 to ship it to the UK. There's no way I'm paying that kind of money.
An EU warehouse, but you're in UK, so.
Well, yeah, we're in UK with Brexit. Yeah, it's bad enough. But I'm not paying that kind of money and then having to assemble the stuff. It's like, no, sorry, I gave you triple digit money for this game. You make the minis, you know. And it's like, but the minis are awesome. Yes, I know they're awesome. I'm not denying that front, but we have to tell cool mini or not on a regular basis that good minis don't make the game great. It's like, you know, you will learn this as well. So it's like I say, I want to play the game, but I do not want the chore, as the Kabuki Kid says. Yeah, I don't want the chore of assembling the thing.
Yes.
As a board game.
Kabuki Kid, I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
I find it as a chore. I hate it. It's my least favorite part about this game, but I've got this gigantic cabinet full of these minis, and I've had to build every single one of them, and I hated every moment of it. But my goodness, the gameplay is worth it. Yeah, the gameplay is absolutely worth it. Big fan.
Fair enough. Okay, well, look at this. This is going to be a long stream, deal with it, guys. But yeah, so this is the one. Yeah, like I said, we were talking about that there's going to be one more crossover. Yeah, it's got to happen. We got to have this crossover, although it's not going to be our ones because it's actually my number 2. And this one has to be a crossover with you in terms of the game. Although I'm curious as to whether this one is your crossover in terms of cycle. Arkham Horror LCG.
Oh man, you love that game so much, though. Well, I know you're number 1 now. Oh,
I do love the game, although it is dropping a bit because the chaos. Well, only because like when it's been going on for so long, it's going to lose a little bit of its appeal, and plus the chaos bag is a little bit of an annoyance. It's kind of like, you know, because I play this on normal at the moment. I think after I'm done with this Innsmouth campaign, I'm going to play it on easy and never not play it on easy because all the difficulty does is makes the chaos bag worse. The chaos bag is a luck fest. You know, like you could pull out the auto fail token 3 times in a row if you're really unlucky. But all you're doing when you up the difficulty is making the odds stupidly punishing. And it's just like, no. If I want to up the difficulty in something, it's like a video game. If I play it on normal mode, I want the adversaries to be normal damage, normal health, whatever. I've got to kill them off. And then when I go onto hard difficulty, they damage you more, or they're harder to do, or their AI is better. In Arkham Horror, when you up the difficulty, all you're doing is saying, did you have bad luck before? Well, now it's worse. And it's like, no, because the bosses aren't any easier to kill. You know, nor's the actual scenarios and that. So it's like, why play it on hard difficulty if you're just going to frustrate yourself? But back to the point.
Tell me why you love this game, though. Why is it number 2?
Well, no, but I do, like I say, the Chaos Bag's the one nickel I have. And like I say, if I play it on easy, I don't have that problem. But, yeah, love the stories that it generates. Love the mechanics still, the sense of exploration, the theme is top notch. Like I say, it's that one niggle is the Chaos Bag. Otherwise, love it. But Path to Carcosa was hands down the cycle I chose. I mean, it wasn't even a close second for the ones I liked. And like I say, the game campaigns are all pretty good, but this one, not only did it have like some excellent player cards throughout it and some cool characters, it takes one of my favorite stories from the Arkham Horror lore, even though I'm not exactly a big aficionado with it, which is the King in Yellow, and rolls with it. That's the main plot line. But whereas the rest of the cycles kind of look like they sometimes get a little bit weird towards the end. Like you enjoy the story for the first half, and then by the end of it, it's like, okay, this is getting a bit weird. Where's the big boss battle? You know, this one has a boss battle, yes, but it's not quite the same way. But whereas the others also have like, oh, here's the big gribbly monster. Here's the gore fest, or say. I mean, I used to like horror films a bit more than I do now, but now I'm kind of not squeamish, but I just can't stand gore fests anymore. It's like, I'm done with it because it's not scary to have blood and guts everywhere. It's just sick. And lately, we've had some sickness on horror films as they try to up the ante. But one of my favourite horror films of all time is Alien, the first Alien. There's barely any gore in that. There's a couple of gory moments. I mean, that's about it. The rest of it is just atmosphere and suspense. And I like psychological horrors as well. And that's what this cycle does. The King in Yellow, as far as I can tell from, like, obviously I'm not the expert of the lore, is essentially a play that when you watch it, everybody goes insane. But there's nothing about like weird about the play. It's like, okay, this is an unusual story, but why do I go insane? But you basically sort of see the aftermath as opposed to why people go insane. So it's like, you don't understand it fully. It just happens. But I love the insanity part with the Arkham Horror lore, because when you play through this cycle, weird stuff is happening and it's like, what on earth is going on here? This is very much a psychological horror story. And you've got a character who keeps appearing, like this man in the hooded mask or something. That's just like the ominous character. It's like, who are you? It's like you're trying to chase after them. You've got a scenario where you've got like this ghost musician dude like stalking you through Paris, which I thought was a really cool scenario. There's a going through like Arkham Asylum is one of the scenarios. I thought the second scenario is like going to a party with the actors of the play. And
this
then
one has some of the best scenarios in it, for sure. Like the play one, the catacombs, there's just so many cool places you visit. I love that you travel from place to place, and there's a big breadth of exploration in some of the scenarios, which is super, like one of the best things about Arkham, in my opinion.
Yeah, like I said, I know I ragged on the chaos bag of that, but like I say, I play it on easy mode now, and now that's mitigated or so. So I know I said that I went on too much there. I still love this game to bits. But Path to Carcosa was like, I didn't even have to think. I thought all the campaigns, I thought, I like this, don't like that, like this, don't like that. Here, I don't have anything I don't like. Every scenario in this I love. Maybe the lesser one being the final boss battle, because those ones you can only do so much apart from fight a big boss battle. But even that has some cool variety in it. But all the scenarios leading up to it, I just thought were great. And like I say, the King in Yellow is one of my favorite aspects of the lore, because it's not all about gore fests or gribbly monsters. It's mind screwage, and it's like, what is going on? It's like this one has you asking questions and doesn't resolve them. And going through the story itself, you've got the conviction and doubt aspects. So depending on what choices you make, you're convicted to stopping what's going on, but then if you go the other way, you're kind of doubting this is all real and this is all made up. It's like, it was such a, I mean, it's like most TV series. You start off good, you peak at season 2, and then it kind of dwindles after that. This is your season 2 of a good TV series.
That's funny.
Well, I watch a lot of Arrowverse CW shows and that, and it's kind of similar with them. Like Arrow, for example, started off great. Season 2 was amazing. And all the other seasons, as much as I enjoyed them, never quite measure up to season 2. And it's just, it's the same with this. But this is obviously your number 1. So we'll get on to what your favorite cycle is at that point.
You got it. Yep.
Of course it's going to be a number 1. So
of course.
So why don't we just get on that? Although I wonder if you're correct as to what you think my number 1's going to be. And I'll be interested.
I think I do. I think it's a new addition to this list.
We'll see.
All right, my number 1, as Luke predicted, absolutely, it's Arkham Horror, the card game. So, but in
which cycle?
My cycle is actually going to be one of the newer ones. It is the Dream Eaters. So the Dream Eaters cycle has you participating in a standard 8 campaign if you want. It has many different ways to play its campaign. It has you separated into 2 groups. So you can either do the dream world or you can do the real world. So in each campaign, you're interacting with the game differently. But it also can be a long campaign or a short campaign. And I think that really plays to its strengths. In this campaign, instead of the normal 8, you can play a 4-scenario campaign, which is actually a lot of fun because you're getting almost double the experience points that you normally would, which means you're able to level up your deck faster. You're able to just really build really cool decks really fast and get those powerful cards played as soon as possible. And I think that is awesome for a game like Arkham Horror, where sometimes it'll take a while before you get that really cool shotgun or some really cool abilities, or maybe you need a specific card to get a deck working. So I think that adds to a lot in this scenario. And the world itself is wonderful. The first half you have is the dream itself. You can enter the dream world and you're interacting with these cool creatures. And it has my favorite scenario of all time from Arkham Horror and from anything really, the Search for Kadath. Search for Kadath has you basically going on a ship and exploring the dream world. And I think that is just so fun. You get to go from place to place, seeing all these fantastic creatures and really strange landscapes, and the story's really yours to go through. It honestly gives me that Sleeping Gods vibe, where you're on a ship and you're sailing around, but it's got the Arkham Horror mechanics.
You've got a feeling about that, yeah, because
I think I do. Maracaibo, you're on a ship. Sleeping Gods, you're on a ship.
Something about ships. I mean, I don't know enough about the Arkham lore, but I mean, this was the first time I heard of Kadath. So I'm quite surprised that's not your favorite out of the lore. So cool.
I honestly have only read the Innsmouth story from the whole H.P. Lovecraft thing. I haven't read anything else. Once again, I've learned through osmosis just by being around this Arkham stuff. But oh man, I love this. I think it's so well done. And then on the flip side of this, that fantastical dream world, you have the real world where you're trying to break into the dream world from our reality. And it has you going through these like super terrifying experiences where little pieces of the dreams, of the nightmares are coming in, and you're having to deal with that. And I think that's just such a cool way to deal with things. They hit it out of the park with the first scenario of each, leading you into the story. And each of them have their own final bosses, which is super cool. Small campaign, but you still have a great final boss. I think they knocked it out of the park with them as well. You have one that is all about positioning, and the other one kind of messes with your hand. And I think that's super wonderful. They did a great job with the theme. They did a great job with the new mechanics. The new player cards are really interesting with the new bonded cards they included, and the locations and the art is stunning. So wonderful. What do you have to say about Dream Eaters? I know you like the game, but did you play through this one yet?
I'm up to date with the exception of the newest cycle pack from Innsmouth, or whatever it is, Light in the Fog.
Oh, nice.
I think that's I haven't played that yet, but I'm up to date. So this was definitely a runner-up. I can't remember if it was like my number 2 or number 3 when I was thinking like ranking the cycles. Because I would like to see this 8-part campaign thing done more. Because I like the idea that if I want a shorter campaign, I can just play one of these in a 4-parter or something. And and they haven't done it with the Innsmouth, which is a bit of a shame. So, it's a bit annoying that it's tied to this particular one. The Dreamlands is a part of the lore I do like, or I'm kind of interested in. But like I didn't overly care about the whole Kadaf thing. The Poogs, or whatever they're called, the creatures that you find, the Zogs.
Yeah.
Also,
Zoogs.
Yeah, Zoogs, they are creepy in this game.
They're like creepy, like drug-infused gremlins is what I think of them as.
Yeah, I mean, there's not going to be a picture of them, but yeah, they are creepy.
Oh, there's one right there.
Oh, there's one. Yeah, this thing down the right here. It basically looks like a gremlin if you gave it like a spider mouth thing or something. Is that they are very creepy. I wouldn't want to see them normally. But the thing is, when I played through this campaign, the Dreamland stuff I was kind of like okay with. Like I liked it, but I wasn't like as invested in the story. And the final boss, I'm like, okay, to me, you're just generic elder god or something. It's like, I don't know a lot about him, whoever he is. Lala Tep or whatever, I don't know. I can't pronounce his name. But as I say, it's just because out of the lore, the Dreamlands is not my firm favourite. I did, however, really like the other half of the campaign with the real world stuff. I thought that was some really good, because you deal with the Ulfar and the cats, which I thought was great. But one thing that does stop me wanting to play this too often, though, Arkham Horror is already a scary setting, right? It already does a very good job at like atmosphere and fear. I was dreading playing this expansion, though. The cover kind of says it all, really. It's like, no, not the Dream Eater part. No, the bit in the middle. The giant spider in the middle.
Spiders?
It's like, put
really?
me off. I am arachnophobic. I hate spiders. And oh my god! I mean, I hate spiders in all games I have to fight. I mean, I have to fought them in Journeys in Middle Earth for ages. It's like, hate these spiders. But in this and in the Arkham Horror 2nd edition that I used to have, I hated playing against the Elder God Natak Laka or whatever it is, or something, because it's got one of the most creepiest pictures I've ever seen. It's like a spider with like a human face on it or something. It's just like, that is scary. That's going to haunt my nightmares. So I thought, I'm going to have nightmares playing this like campaign with spiders. And I thought, okay, just deal with it. All right, hopefully good. The problem is Fantasy Flight does good artwork. And a lot of the spiders, I mean, some of them I can get over, like that one on the cover. It's like, it's nasty, it's creepy, but it's like, it's fantastical. It doesn't look realistic because it's a alien concept. The problem is spider swarms and normal spiders aren't fantastical. It's why Arachnophobia is still probably a film that I will refuse to watch ever again, because everything looks realistic in that film. It's like,
I can see why you don't go back to the Lord of the Rings campaign anymore, because you're on that Shelob scenario. It all makes sense now. It's all coming together.
Oh god, the spider artwork in Lord of the Rings, bad. I have had times where I've just been flipping over and I turn over a card and I have a heart attack. Like, I see the picture as I chuck it away. I can't. The artwork's too good in that game. But here, it's worse, because the artwork in this is really good. There's like a card called Spider Swarm. It's just basically a swarm of spiders. And it's like, if I saw that, I would brick it and run out of the scenario immediately. Like, I'm sorry. And the first scenario in this one has, like, you've got like a lot of the cards have got spider artwork on them, and they're close-ups and stuff, and it's like, I can't even look at this artwork, it's too scary.
Oh no.
But the first scenario in this is nightmare fuel. Like, this is the sort of thing that I would literally have a nightmares about. It's like, okay, we're in a hospital. okay, not the nicest place to be. And it's like they're on the bed, you're looking at your friends, they're dreaming, and it's all like that. Why is everything getting cobwebs everywhere? It's like, oh Christ. And then it's like you go around, like the orderlies come by and they look normal, but something's not quite right. But then you start seeing spiders appear in all sorts of places. It's like, okay, this is nightmare fuel. I don't want to be in this scenario. And then you get the pictures where it's like the orderlies suddenly have like the spiders coming out of their gob, and I was like, I'm done. I'm out. It's like, I'm done.
I'm sorry if I'm triggering any PTSD here. We don't have to keep talking about this. We can move on.
Oh no, but it's like, I was just like, I'm checking out. I was like, I wanted to get that scenario over with, but I've never been more scared playing the scenario, which is quality to the game. It really did put me in a tense mood.
Arkham Horror.
You know, it does its job, but this is why I do not like. I mean, oh, cool. It's like, yeah, the artwork's too good. It's like, ugh, spiders, but it made me want to succeed. And when you get to the final boss in the actual cycle, I've got to admit, mechanically, that was fantastic. I thought the mechanics for that final boss were brilliant, but it's like, oh god, I gotta fight this thing.
And you gotta touch it. Oh man.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, these investigators have to put up with all this stuff. I feel like if I went up against Yig and saw the snakes, I'd be fine. I'm cool with snakes. I'll have a python ram a neck or something, or whatever, ram a neck. I wouldn't care too much until it kills you, but, you know, like, I wouldn't be scared of it. It's a snake. I'm fine with them. So it's like, if I see Yig, I'd be like, oh my god, it's a monster, but die. You know, deal with it and die. If I saw any of these spider things turn up, I'm like, yeah, check out. You're on your own, guys. I'm sorry. The world can go to pot. I don't care. I'm not dealing with this right now. It's just like, it is so scary. But nah, I mean, I like the scenario fine. I thought the difficulty spikes got a little bit ridiculous in the later parts. That's kind of what stopped it being my favorite. But like I said, this was easily like my second or third favorite cycle. We haven't played enough of Innsmouth to know if that's going to overtake it, because I do think the Innsmouth one's pretty good so far.
It's pretty great. It is pretty
But
good.
yeah, this is better than Dunwich. This is better than Forgotten Age, and probably better than Circle Undone as well. So yeah, probably a second favourite. So
obviously.
But it's like this one just like you know, I can deal with it, but it's like this one would trigger me a lot more than the other one did. Oh, but it's like as soon as I knew this was the expansion, I thought, oh no, I can't deal with this one. All right, well, let's see. Under something. Actually, I was about to say something a bit more cheerful. That is entirely the wrong phrase to illustrate this particular one. You've probably figured it out, and I'm sure loads of other people have.
I know this one for sure.
But yeah, this one, I didn't think, like, when I even got this, that this was going to be a number one for this list. I thought, how did this get to number one? But when I thought about it, and after I played it, it's like, no, this is easily my favorite campaign I've ever played in any game, not just from a mechanical perspective, but primarily just because the story is that good. It is easily this War of Mine, Days of the Siege. This one, people in comments have actually mentioned, like, oh, is this one on your list or something like that? It's like, we'll get to it. We'll get to it. This one is hands down the best story I've come across in anything like that. I mean, I already love this War of Mine. You know, gritty, dark. I really want to get back on the PC game again. I just haven't had time, but, you know, I still play the board game. Each scenario is great fun, but I thought, I held off this one for a bit. I thought, do I really need to play this as a big campaign? Is this like too much? It wasn't a cheap expansion, but I thought, oh, well, I'll go with it. Bought it, and then I thought, we're going to do this list soon. I need to do a video on this. I put one out recently. That's probably why you knew it was going to be my number one. Yeah, from that review.
Absolutely.
And exactly. And I thought, let's play it. 3 acts. Okay, cool. This won't take too long. Yes, each scenario is a good 3 hours or so to get through it. Like when you're playing it, it's a long game. But I thought, I can deal with 3 acts of this long. Didn't take much to get into the rules. It tweaks some of the rules, but I think what it does to exploration, I think, is an improvement in a sense. Having a map board and then going to the various locations to, like, find the apartment building, not necessarily. I mean, there's not many pictures of this. I've already scouted ahead on this front, but I mean, I just love this artwork. This artwork is so good. The video game is just so immersive. In fact, when I play this game, board game wise, I put the soundtrack to the video game on all the time. It's really good, like atmospheric music. But I don't think you'll find much in the way of photos of the games. Obviously, it doesn't want to spoil too much, but I suppose it's as good as you're going to get. But yeah, you've got a sideboard here of the area, and it's kind of like the same setting. You're in this city, and it's all going to pot. But this is sort of like the culmination of the battle, the war that's going on. And again, you've got to survive. But in terms of the paragraph stories that you come across and the plot arcs that you find, I've never seen a game do a theme so rich and well as this. I mean, if the original game was going to trigger you, this will trigger you worse. In terms of like the stuff that you have to do, because you've really got to do some morally bankrupt stuff on occasion. Or you can be the nice guy, but then that's going to hurt you as well.
That's not going to pay up.
But I love how much branching storyline is this. I've played it, and I feel like I could play this another 5, 6, 7 times before I find everything. Because put it this way, you get to a point where it says, put all the story tokens you found on this slot, and then you might use them later. There were 7 slots. I found 1. It's like, wow, okay. And I still succeeded in the campaign, and that. It's not like you need them all to succeed, but that's a lot of plot arcs that I didn't find. And that was like halfway through the campaign. But the main 3 acts have got branching paths as well. So you've got Act 1, but then depending on how you end that one, you've got Act 2A, Act 2B, and then Act 3A and Act 3B, depending on how that one ends. So you've already got branching paths with the main things that are very different. But even just the events that come up, the event deck that you normally have in the base game, that just gives you an event and that's it.
Yeah.
This one, they're like mini stories. So if you ignore them, they tick down on a timer track, and if you leave them be, then something resolves. Like, I mean, an example, not taken straight from the game here, but like, say the bridge is out. You could fix it. You might get some food. It's going to take time and resources, though. All right, I'll leave it. But then the bridge is broken, now you can't get across it for the rest of the campaign. You know, it's stuff like that. So everything has consequences. Nothing feels like it was just there as a card, done and dusted. But the events, there's multiple events for each act. You only use, I think, 6 of them or something. There's probably a good 9, 10 of them. You know, so you're going to get different events turn up every time you play through the whole campaign. And you might ignore one, in which case it goes away, or you might follow one and it could be like another 6, 7 different story missions that you go through. It could be like its own story in itself. And like I said, I'm not spoiling very much here because it's like 0.5% of the game or something. But I came across an event that said, go check out an orphanage. Okay, fine. Orphanage is somewhere at the other end. I'll go check it out and see what happens. Kids need feeding. And assuming you're not crying by the time you get through just the initial paragraph of kids starving to death, it's like, okay, fine. The idea of like the kids find you and they're all happy until they realize you have no food in your hand, and then they go away depressed. It's like, dang, you know. But I thought, right, I'm going to save these kids, and I don't want kids in real life. So me deciding I want to save the orphanage is a stretch.
Very noble of you.
Exactly. And I thought, right, I'm going to make it this game. I'm going to save all these kids. This is going to be my plot for the game. Did several missions. I won't go into details, but like I say, did several things, get them stuff, go help this, go find this. And then eventually, after going through it, because you might not do all their plot arcs, but I thought I'm going to see this one through to the end. The last thing you have to do is find them a new place to be, because the army has just got too held up where they are. And so you have multiple choices of places you can go. I was struggling to get through my typical survival, so I thought, I've only got time to visit one place. So I'll go to this one place. Read the description, it said it was pretty good, but there may be some issues, and I thought, this seems fine. It could be worse. You can stay here. I found you a new place. It gives you an epilogue to read at the end, right? So I got through the scenario, and bear in mind, you can actually succeed this campaign on Act 2. You can actually follow a path so well that you get out on there, and I did. I had to actually rewind the game to go through and play through Act 3 because I didn't want to finish too early.
Gotcha.
Although, it wasn't exactly a great ending. It basically meant that your character survived. I hope the rest of the people in the shelter did also. And it's like, what? So one person's out? That's it? No, that's it. That's horrible ending. No, rewind, you know. But I got to the end. It's like, right, we've all survived. Great, fantastic. Oh, epilogue, yeah. Let's read that orphanage. How did they do? You go back there, and what's left of it is you think there may be some kids under the rubble, but you don't want to. Wow, is that the orphanage got shelled? Like, as the epilogue, the place that I found them was not defensible enough, so it got hit by rockets. Wow, I mean, it doesn't trigger me.
And that's on you, right? That was your decision. Oh, yeah, man.
But that's the consequences here. It doesn't faze me too much because I detach myself with this sort of thing. But it's like, yeah, dark and gritty, and because I like things like Black Mirror and stuff, I love it because it made me feel like I went through this whole arc of trying to save this orphanage, and because of one decision I made, They all died.
And that's very much into this War of Mine theme, and in general, like that's the game in a nutshell. If you like stuff like that, you're gonna like this game.
Yeah, I do love it.
Oh, wow.
Like I say, I played for this campaign, and I thought if I had more time on my hands, I would have played this straight away. I haven't even done that with Sleeping Gods.
Wow.
It's not a massive rules change if you know how to play this War of Mine. The map board, the rule book's actually pretty straightforward in terms of the new stuff. Some stuff you don't use from the old set, like you don't have to bother with like finding piles and a couple of other decks of cards. You can actually not use them. And it's like, that simplifies things. Even the building up your house is simpler because you no longer have to dig all the bits out of your house anymore, apart from, I think, the basement, briefly. All the rooms are there. You don't have to, like, generate ideas for the better inventions. You have them all available, so you can do whatever you like. So it simplifies that prospect and focuses more on the story. And as I say, the story is top notch. It's not just a bunch of little mini scenarios. There is one overarching plot, some major characters that can get killed off if you do things wrong and stuff. It never feels like you never feel like, oh, I'm in a happy place. It's like, even it's like, oh, we got a potential ally. Yeah, but he's still a dick. It's like, this one just bowled me over so much. Like, if I played this War of Mine, if I need to get a quick scenario done, I'll do one of the ones on the first expansion. But if I've got the time to devote and leave it on the table, also, like, I'm pulling out Days of the Siege. It just really worked for me.
So I can't argue with you on this pick. It's wonderful. It does exactly what it does super well. Now, I don't know if you know this, but they actually use this game as a teaching device in Europe. So it's a huge part of the history curriculum in Polish schools. So they'll use this as a teaching tool to talk about civil wars and the idea of living during one of these. So I think that's super fascinating that it does its job so well. Now, whenever I bring out this game, I generally try to play just one-offs. But I do have the Last Days of the Siege. But you're saying that it's short. It's not like a super, super long campaign. So this sounds like something that I would really enjoy.
Free acts. If you do well enough, you can finish on the second act. And I say well enough. It's if you follow past to certain fruition. There may be more than one way to do it in Act 2. I don't know. But there was certainly this one way I did it. But it wasn't like, oh, everybody survives. There may be a way for everyone to survive, but I don't know. But this particular one, it was like one of your... Because it depended on... I only sent one character to this particular thing. Had I sent everybody there, they would have all survived. But because it was just the one person, it technically said, they survive... I hope the rest of the people in the shelter are fine. It's
my gosh.
So you basically abandoned your friends. It's like, Jesus. And it just throws in. I mean, there's a couple of little modules like kids and that you can throw into standalone games, but frankly, I just put them in this campaign one. Like, you can find an orphan child and bring them up as well, which is it's certainly interesting to do. I mean, I had a fully kitted out house by the end of this. I had 3 characters. I got a kid. I then also found a 4th character who turned up, I think, from the plot. But then I also ended up with a 5th character because I went outside to try and see if I could find a trader. Somebody came to the door and it's like, do you want this person in your party? And it's like, they do have some interesting stuff I need. I mean, he has a hatchet. I could do with that right now. And it's like, so I invited him in. So I had a 5-person team that I was looking after. It was quite.
And you left them all, right? Naturally.
No. We all survived.
Oh, you all survived. Excellent. Okay.
Well, when
I thought it was
rewound,
just one guy survived. Oh, man.
Originally it was when I finished in Act 2. But as I say, what I did was I basically said, right, well, hang on, let me do the other choice in that paragraph and then see what happens. And yeah, it fundamentally changed things by doing the other choice. But by doing that, it meant I could get to Act 3. That's the only time I would rewind it. It's just because I wanted to obviously do all 3 acts. And it's like, okay, fine. And as I say, even just the 3 acts themselves are good. I mean, I don't want to spoil, but like I say, they are very different outcomes.
So I know in your review for this game, you said that you were much more a fan of this than the one-off scenarios. So I do like a lot of the scenarios, but you would recommend this larger campaign instead of those one-off scenarios?
I would recommend this expansion over the Ruined City one, but the thing is, the only thing I like from Ruined City expansion is those scenarios, and I think they are really good, unique one-off scenarios. I mean, there was one in particular I really loved, which was like I think it was like a boyfriend and girlfriend or 2 crushes that you got to survive with 2 of them. Yeah. And it's like, that was such a good story one. Like, trying to have both of them survive as 2. So I thought that was brilliant. But the problem is I don't like the sewers module. It's weird and it's like complicated as all get out, and I didn't really like the farmers thing either. And I thought the extra modules that expansion added were just too fiddly and too complex, and I just didn't want to use them. But I love the one-off scenarios. But that's the only reason I would get that expansion now. This one, though, is all about the campaign. I mean, yes, you can throw the kids into any game, but that's such a small addition. And I think there's a dog. I don't even use the cat from the other one. It's like, so I'm not going to use the dog either. You know, it doesn't really do much for you, but it eats your food. Well, why on earth would I want it then? It just makes the game harder. Yeah, but predominantly you get this for the campaign, which is why I didn't buy it originally, because I wanted to play the game more first, and I thought, oh great, another campaign. I skipped it at Essen when I saw it, and I thought, but then I think in the last couple of months I thought, at some point I'm going to talk about this kind of thing. It's like, you know what, I've got to give voucher for this. I need to check this campaign out, and boy, I'm glad I did. But yeah,
all right,
2.5 hour stream. Yeah, like, definitely a long one, because we certainly went on there, but I think most people, I think a lot of the people in the chat have kind of, like, they agree that they like this war of mine, and in some cases actually prefer it than the video game, which, to be fair, I mean, like I say, well, the thing is, I do find myself playing the board game probably from a tactile perspective more than the video game, but the video game's still really good. I mean, it's kind of pick your poison, because I like the board game for like the events and the cards and stuff like that come up, and the fact that it is just a really cool board game in its sense, and I love the paragraph books. But I do miss from the video game that when you go exploring, you physically go and explore. Like, I am actually trying to hide in, like, yeah, because have you not played the video game?
I have not played the video game, but I really like the exploration mechanic in this War of Mine board game. So the idea that you are actually doing these actions, though, seems insane. Yeah,
because in the video game, you actually move the people around in your house, and you do cooks, and you've got a certain amount of time before day ends. So you're kind of on a slow timer. But when you do the actual exploration and scavenging, you physically choose the location, you end up there with your character, you interact with people who are already there. Like, you might go to the hospital and actually talk to the doctors and that. There'll be locked doors, there'll be cabinets that you can get stuff out of, but then if you obviously raid a cabinet while someone's watching you, then they try and chase you out and stuff. And it's just like, you actually have a little third person perspective. It's a bit like the old platforming games where there's like the 2D scrolling was. You basically have that kind of mini game every time you go and explore, and you'll come back to the same location multiple times because you've got like a hacksaw and you find a new area with more stuff to do. But I just love the fact that you interact with the characters there, and you can't just merrily, like in other games, just go, no, I'm just stealing all your stuff, like in Skyrim or like something else. Like, I'm just nicking all your stuff, don't mind me. Yeah, you don't care, I'm out of it. No, this is like, there's a priest there, he's looking after some people, and I decide next door to him to go, that's a nice tin of canned spam. Oh, wow! like run. Or like do it anywhere near army people who like try and shoot you on sight. It's a really cool game. I love it. As I say, the soundtrack's wonderful.
Another one to check out. All right.
But yeah, top 10 campaigns. Ooh, there's quite a few. I mean, as I say, I did consider Journeys in Middle-earth, but I like Journeys in Middle-earth campaigns more from the mechanics side of it, because I love how the mechanics work in that game. The stories are kind of basic. You know, there's not much to the stories, and as I found out with the campaign that I finished today, they tend to be very, very good up until you get to the finale, when the difficulty spike goes to such obscene levels that it really tarnishes what you've just been going through. So that's my sort of niggle with Journeys to Middle-earth. So I thought that was kind of like 11 or 12, but I didn't want to put it on the list. And Career, I just haven't played it yet. You get round to this War of My Days of the Siege. I'll get round to Career. How about that?
Deal. So for me, my 11, 12, one of them was Out of Luxon. It is a campaign expansion for Alter Quest. So have you played Alter Quest at all?
Never played it.
So it takes the idea of the modular deck system. You take a dungeon, you take a boss, and then you take those cards, and those kind of populate what you're going through. And then you take your own character as his own personal deck. Out of Luxon gives a campaign to this game, where every time you win, you'll get equipment that you can carry from scenario to scenario. And when you lose, you'll get some negatives that will basically strengthen the bad guys from scenario to scenario. So it's a really cool combination of the story, but the campaign itself is a little bit too easy, in my opinion. And for games like this, where you have that kind of like mix up two things and smash them together, I like the one-off scenarios more than I like the campaigns. themselves. So that's why I did make this list. I think its strength is its one-off scenarios. So that and Street Masters have a similar thing. So I would recommend the one-offs more than the campaigns in that case.
Fair enough. Right. I need to shut this down because I've only just noticed the time getting on the 2.5 hours. Because Sunday evening is when I play games with friends online. In a few minutes, I need to actually go meet them. So it's like, yeah, better finish the stream. So cheers everybody for turning up. Thanks for watching.
Thanks again, Luke, for having me.
Yeah, honestly, this has been good fun, actually. This is the most back and forth banter I've had, like in terms of grilling each other's choices and stuff like that. So it's like, we have to repeat this at some point with a much more touchy subject, I think, maybe.
Absolutely down for that. Let's do it.
This was a good laugh. But as I say, hashtag supports world creators. There's a link to his YouTube channel, Sidegame LLC, in the description. But by all means, also have if you're in the Colorado area, that's going to be a niche audience who's watching this channel. But like I say, check out the whole board game host party night thing, because it's a cool idea. It'd be nice to see that do well once lockdowns and that start easing up, and we can actually do that more. But this has been good fun. So thanks for coming on, and thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you guys soon. All right.
Thanks, guys. Bye.